Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of BCS Community Connections podcast. And today on the podcast, I have none other than Mrs. Brittany Lammerts. Thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we have literally spent an hour talking before we even sat down to record this. Yeah. So, which is commonly the case around this place. I like to talk, and so, but now we need to turn that talk into this talk where we can actually record some stuff. So, you are the owner. I'll say owner/creator of Atlas Belle Studio, right? And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about your business there. Business, in parentheses, is businesses, because I know that's not the only thing that you're doing. You got your hands in some other things as well, too. So I want to give you an opportunity to talk about that. But before we get into that, I want people to kind of learn a little bit about you. So I'm going to ask for a little bit of your background. Tell me where you grew up, what brought you here to College Station, all of that good stuff. Family.
I grew up in East Texas. Do you know where Tyler is?
I do.
So outside of Tyler, like 20, 30 minutes, there's a little bitty town called Chandler.
Okay.
It's like population 3,000.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with Chandler, but I know where you're at.
It's little bitty. So I grew up there, and actually I went to school. I didn't go to school in Chandler. We had to drive 8 minutes down the road to a smaller town called Brownsboro to go to high school because Chandler didn't have a high school.
3,000 people with no high school.
Right. They're like, no, we got elementary, but that's it. You got to go down there. So I went to school there. Grew up, my dad was from the Tyler area. My mom was not, but she had family there, like her grandmother, great uncle, everybody. It was nice to grow up there, but I say that I moved here and I stayed here because I didn't have to drive 30 minutes to get to Walmart. Like that was the appeal of College Station. I was like, I can get to Walmart in like 5 minutes. I'm not leaving.
That's right.
Right. I came here for college. I had wanted to be a veterinarian since I was a little kid.
Okay.
I did an internship at the zoo in Tyler. Loved it. It was so much fun. And I got to shadow under every department, but I hated the vet one because up until that point, I didn't realize that you typically only see them when they're sick.
Yeah.
It's not something that occurred, I was like, oh, I want to help them, right? Like as a little kid. But then like seeing the animals in their habitats, healthy and fine, not in quarantine or needing surgery or whatever. And then seeing them there, I was like, oh, this is really boring and it sucks. Yeah. I don't want to do this. But I was like, I do want to go to college, and I'm the oldest of my siblings. And so it was all this pressure, and my grandfather's name is on a building at A&M. So I was like, I got to go to A&M, and, being a vet, like it was the only choice. Right. Yeah. So I came here for college, and by the time I got here, I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure I don't want to be a vet anymore, but I don't know what the hell I want to do. Mm-hmm. Hell, sorry.
That's okay.
It's fine. Sorry. Yeah, I'm not good. Sorry, but
this is who I am.
Yeah. Unapologetically, full offense.
There you go.
So I came here and I was just taking basics, and I hated college. Like it was really boring. I hated it. I never enjoyed school, but it was never a challenge for me, you know? So I was like, oh, cool. So it's like high school part 2. Great. Awesome.
Yeah. Only you get to pay to go.
Yeah. Cool. I'm paying. Well, I took an ad class, and it was literally like, like open the page, and it was like, this is a cow, this is a bull. And it had the definition. And I was like, I am paying for this.
Right.
What am I doing? And it was like this auditorium of like 200 people. And I was like, okay, whatever. Maybe it gets better. We'll see. My first semester in college, I did not work, and I'd had a job, like I think since I was 12 or 13, like I babysat, and then I always worked, always. But my grandmother didn't want me to get a job. She wanted me to focus on school. She paid my tuition. She paid for my rent. But she was a nurse. She was like, I'll pay for this for you. Just go. And because she didn't finish nursing school till she was like in her 40s. So I was like, okay. And then my second semester, I got a job, but I didn't tell her. My half brothers lived with her. And every time I needed money for stuff, I felt bad, like I was taking it from them. Yeah. And so I was like, I'll just go get a job, and then like I can use that money for groceries and gas and stuff and not have to ask her, right? But then it was, okay, well, do I go home and study, or do I work this double and pick up hours,
And make money.
Work took over. Yeah. And I worked my way up, and it was in retail. It was at PacSun in the mall. Mm-hmm. And then the summer after my first year, I was driving by the Pizza Hut on Welborn, and they had signs out that said hiring delivery drivers. And I was like, that sounds like fun. Can't be that hard. I'm very directionally challenged, but maybe it'll make me better at it.
That's right. That's what Google Maps are for and all that other stuff.
It wasn't a thing, right? Like we had to go and like I had to write down like, okay, turn left here.
If you're
like,
old, then you remember things like MapQuest.
Yeah, like so I got my own cell phone and like on my own cell phone plan whenever I worked at PacSun, because before that I had Sprint, and like when they would charge you like roaming. Yeah. Like that's what my grandma was like, your phone bill was $300. And I was like, okay, I'll get one here, So I got one, and it was like this cool like slidey phone, but like anytime it tried to connect to the internet, I was like, abort, because I didn't want to pay for it.
I'm not on the tower.
Right. Like if I said any of that to my kids now, they'd be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Ask them to define what a PCS tower is for Sprint. Cause I've pretty much been on every single service that's out there. And you had to be on the PCS tower or you were roaming. Right. And then it charges you. And you're like, just turn it off. Yeah, it was horrible. So I got my phone. Anyway, I applied at Pizza Hut and I got in, and I was the only girl that worked there. And I was the only girl delivery driver. And I wasn't intimidated. It was fine. I had worked in food in high school. Yeah. And people asked me like, well, why did you work in food? And I'm like, because if you work in food, you won't starve. That's right. Like, remember, like I was a poor college kid worried about like buying groceries. All right. So like, even if I didn't have any food, if I worked, I was guaranteed to eat at least once that day. That's right.
And I said that to Sam, and he was like, I never thought about that, but I was like, I mean, for real, like there's mess ups or cancellations or whatever,
you got to lock in for some pizza's going to get messed up here somewhere. Right.
And like, you can change up the toppings a lot. Cause everybody's like, do you get tired of it? Like, well, kind of, but there's so many things that you can change, I got tired of Dairy Queen a lot faster than I did pizza.
So when you were talking about the small town earlier, that's what was running through my head, because everybody knows every small town
has a Dairy Queen in it. Right. We did when I was in high school, and then the owners moved. And so like they took down all the signage, and now I think it's been like 4 or 5 different things, like the building. But yeah, and now they have a new one like right outside of town. But yeah for sure.
It's still Dairy Queen. Yeah, they make it look fancy.
Well, no, I'll drive and I'm like, that's where the Dairy Queen was. Right. Like if we go through my hometown. So yeah, like I was in college and did that, and then I worked my way up in Pizza Hut. I was 19. Got passed over for a promotion because I was 19, because I was a girl, which kind of was a bummer. But I was like Pizza Hut, and I don't know if they still do it, but at the time they did this thing where they would hire assistants and GMs, and if you had a degree, didn't matter what the degree was in, right, you automatically got paid more than
because you're showing that commitment.
I have the piece of paper that shows that I have the tenacity to finish what I start. That's like, right. But I was like my GM, and he was super cool, but he had a degree in history and 0 food experience, and I was like, this guy, I've been here for like a year and a okay, that's cool, whatever, So then I went to Dairy Queen.
This is your first good taste of leadership in the corporate world, right?
Yeah. Okay. I was real frustrated. And like our area manager was cool, but I think like, she was like you do your job well, blah, 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 whatever. It's kind of, it's out of my control. And I was like, it's nothing personal. It's just business. That's fine. Sure. But I'm going to go over here where they're going to pay me more because then they brought this guy in, and he had come from retail, super, super nice, but he didn't know what he was doing. And I was like, this is awful. Yeah. So I went, and then where's my history
professor? I want him back.
Yeah, it was so bad. So I went to Dairy Queen, and then I guess I'm through my sophomore year, and I'm getting to where I'm having to like pick like major specific classes, and I still don't know what the hell I want to do. Right. And so I was just kind of taking classes like random. And I told my grandma, I was like, I'm going to hit the pause button on college. She was devastated. She was like, I really don't want you to do this. I feel like this is a bad idea. And I said, it's not going anywhere. Like university, college, anywhere, it doesn't matter where I live. It's not going anywhere. I can go back.
Pick it up next year or 2 years.
And she's like, but I'm afraid that you won't. And I said, right now I feel like I'm throwing money in the toilet because I don't know, like all these classes that I'm taking just to stay enrolled, I don't know if they're going to eventually go to whatever degree that I choose, if I choose one, right? And then like my mom and my siblings and other family members were like, why don't you just pick something? And I was like, well, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to pick something just to pick it, because what if I do and I graduate and I go to get a job in that field and I hate it? Yeah. I know me well enough to know that I'm not going to stick with it, but I sure as hell don't want to just go back through college again to do, I'm not.
So this is the story of potentially 85-90% of college kids. Right. I mean, they end up with a degree that they I don't want to say never use. There are probably pieces of that they use in what they're doing. Right. But it's like, I thought I wanted to do this, But I don't really, now that I've
well,
done
but
it, or
like
now that
think
I get a
about how
taste
much
of
you
it.
change between like 18 and 22.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, your
like
brain is still this big.
right. And you're
still
figuring out
growing
who
and-
you are and what you like and what you don't like. And like, you know, for me, like first time, like living on my own and being away from my parents and all of that stuff. And I was like, why we're pushed to make these really big affect the rest of our lives decision. And honestly, in 2 years, because you have the first 2 years to decide.
Right.
I was like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
We need more time.
Yeah, you can float through it the first 2 years with basics and things like that.
Right. Like
but
there
you
was
know
enough
you're gonna
crap that they could fill that they were like, this will all
Right.
transfer to whatever degree. Because at the time I was like, oh, just pick general studies. It's fine, you know.
Yeah, you're going to have this stuff
Right.
no matter what.
Right. I
so.
was like, okay. But then I got done with that and I was like, oh, I don't want to just keep doing stuff to do it because then what if, and honestly, I was like, I don't want to keep doing this. Like this is, I feel like it's not for me.
And what's
but that was
interesting-
a really unpopular opinion.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is it's not even your money. It's
Right.
your grant. Yeah,
But
you're over here. And,
I felt
and
so bad.
I know. But I mean, to that point, it's not, you know, and you probably feel completely different about it as well. Probably more passionate about it if it's, you know, your money that you're putting
Right.
out. And so you're, you know, again, this is a story of a lot of kids' lives here where somebody else is footing the bill on it. And it's just kind of like, oh, float this thing along, man. It's no skin off my back. My parents paying for it or
Right.
whatever. And is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to have the college life. I'm going to live that college life.
I couldn't do it. So I quit. And then I went to work at Furniture Row. I got married. I lost a very good friend to suicide. We worked together at Pizza Hut, and that kind of, I guess, put things into perspective for me and changed it, you know. And I mean, like I not like I felt invincible at the time, you know, but losing someone, especially someone close to you, is a really good reality check of like, life is really short, you know, and like, you don't know what's going to happen.
Sure.
So I go to Furniture Row, get promoted in 4 months, which was unheard of. I'm married, and then I have PCOS and I have thyroid disease. And I'd been on birth control to help control my PCOS. It's polycystic ovary syndrome. I don't know if you know what that is.
I'm familiar with
Okay,
it.
yeah.
Remember, I told you before we went on there, I've spent a
All
bunch
the
of money.
issues, right.
Yeah. I know way more about having a
Okay.
baby than any man should know.
Hey,
so.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Be able to help your kid.
It just cost me $200,000. That's all.
Big deal.
It's like my own degree.
So sorry. So I got off of birth control because it was making my cyst worse. We were married. I was like, oh, it's fine. I had been told when I was 19, they thought I had ovarian cancer. They were like, you'll not be able to get pregnant on your own, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, they lied. The week that I got promoted, I found out I was pregnant with my son. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I've always wanted to be a mom. I've got lots of siblings. I was super pumped, you know. But that definitely changed things because I got super sick, and that morning sickness was all day, and it was like from about 6 weeks till I delivered him, like the whole time, right? So I quit working, did the stay-at-home mom thing, and then when he was 2.5, my not the baby anymore was born, my daughter. So I was staying home with them, but I'm going to back up. My son's first Christmas, he's 6 months old, right? We're super, super broke. My husband at the time was in restaurants. He was an assistant manager at Dairy Queen. And I wanted to get my son some of those cute little crocheted beanies, but they're like $20 each, right? And that was $20 that we didn't have. But I was like, well, I could get like a $3 thing of yarn and just learn how to crochet, and I'll just make it. My grandmother could never teach me because I'm left-handed. So I found these YouTube videos that this lady did that she does left-handed and right-handed. She's phenomenal. But she has these portions in her videos where she slows it way down. So you can actually see, because the trouble is, like, I'd watch these videos and they would go so fast. And I was like, I don't know what you're doing with your hand. Like, I can't.
They're like in step, 47 down the road of being able to do this.
Like,
and they assume you already know that.
I still haven't, So like I watched her videos and I practiced and I got better at it. And I was able to make him some beanies. And then I made some for some of my friends. I was in a birthing class, and so we all had our kids, I guess, within like 6 weeks of each other. And the first round, we all had boys. The second round, we had girls. Pretty cool. Yeah. So I made beanies for their kids. And then one of my friends was like, you should open an Etsy shop. And I was like, F you, that's really stupid. And she was like, no, I'm so serious. And I was like, do you know how saturated that market is with crochet stuff? Nobody's going to buy anything from me. Like, I'm having fun making them, and I'm getting better at it. But I was like, no, that's real dumb. And so she's like, I'm just saying, I think you're good enough, whatever. And I was like, yeah, no thanks. It's fine. So then she did some research, like, to find out how much it costs to start on Etsy. And she kind of started nagging me about it again. She was like, it's only 20 cents a listing. I looked it up. Like, it's not like you have to build a website or anything. And I was like, I just feel like this is a really bad idea.
Yeah.
But she's like, we already have all the stuff. Like, so just take pictures of it and just try. And I was like, all right.
In your head is telling you there's a million listings on Etsy
crochet,
of people who are doing
right.
all
I
of
was
this
like,
stuff.
it's like I get, like, it's nice that you don't have to make your own website. Like, they already get, and at the time, Etsy was not what it is now. Like, so many people were like, what? Yeah. What is it that you sell on? What is that? Yeah. You know, like, they knew what eBay was. But it was just, okay, well, what do I do? Like, I just need to divert some of the traffic that they are already getting versus having my own standalone website. So I was like, okay, fine, whatever. So I did it, and I put some listings up, and I waited, and I didn't sell anything for a little while. I think like 3 months. And I didn't put a lot of work into it either. And there weren't like ebooks or like video courses or anything for like how to like get your listings to rank higher. Like, none of that shit existed. No, it was just like, okay, well, I can go look at other shops and see what they're doing, kind of try and take notes. And that's it. There wasn't SEO. There was nothing, you know, that was like available to us.
Right.
So, and then 3 months after, in I guess the week, I sold 3. And so I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. Like, I wasn't really discouraged. I was like, we'll just wait and see. I think it was like off season whenever I started too.
Yeah.
And so that kind of picked up, and it gave me something to do. Had my daughter, still going.
And these are things you can do without it being a huge pull off of
right.
Mom,
like, you know, like
and all that
nap
stuff.
time, or like when the kids are in bed or whatever, like they're playing in the living room. So I'm sitting there because it's really easy, like, to stop and put it down,
right?
You know?
Yep.
And it was just something that I wanted something to do. And then, like, I think a lot of other people will be able, like, whether you're a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad, like, if you leave the workforce and you come home and your full-time job is taking care of your child and your house and whatever, but you're not making a paycheck, right?
Right.
And so, like, for me, that was a really big struggle because I had worked up to that point until I came home on maternity leave, pregnant with my son. I had always worked, and I'd always been able to pay my portion of the bills. And so that was really, really hard adjustment for me. Like, do I have to ask for permission to spend the money because technically it's not mine, because it's not my paycheck, you know? And then there's a lot of guilt that comes with it. Like, well, I'm doing this, so we're not having to pay for daycare, and we're not having to pay for all these things.
How long married were y'all at this point?
We got married in 2009. My son was born in 2010. And then my daughter was born in 2012. So I'd been home.
2 years.
Yeah. And I'd been home for a couple, but I mean, like, before that, like, he'd had periods of being unemployed, and I worked, and I kept us afloat.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it was a dynamic shift, and it was fine. Like, all of it was just me. Like, I felt really, really guilty, and I felt like I need to be contributing. I need to help. Like, we were poor, you know, single income. Our bills were really minimal, but we lived in like a 2-bedroom duplex, and like we didn't have car payments, and, you know. And so it was just all of those things. I was like, okay, well, I guess I can, like, just keep going and, like, making new things and see if they sell, you know, whatever, taking custom orders, it's fine. So I did that. And then right after my daughter's first birthday, we separated. There'd been issues. We were so young when we got together. So we separated, ended up getting divorced. So then I have to go back to work. Well, I went back to food, because that's where it was really easy for me to get right back in the door, right? Yep. So I put my kids in daycare, and I went back to Pizza Hut. The area manager was the same lady who'd been the area manager whenever I was in college. So it's like, oh, okay, that's cool.
Networking exists.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Well, she's so funny. Her name's Karen. She's from New Jersey. She's like just over 5 feet tall, but she's like rough grit sandpaper. Like, but she knows what she's doing. Like, she's really, really good. But then, like, if you talk to her about personal stuff, like, she totally switches, and she's like got this big heart for her employees. Like, she's let employees like move in with her whenever they've been homeless, like, to get them back on their feet. Like, she's really, really cool. And so I was excited, you know, and she knew me and my soon to be ex-husband. We met at Pizza Hut. I met both my husbands at Pizza Hut because I didn't learn the first time. I was never a big dater. And so, like, if we hadn't worked together, I'd probably still be single.
Well, you talk about where you're going to spend your time. I mean, a big chunk of your time.
If I'm there 40 or 50 hours a week, like, I'm not going to, okay, cool, let me go home and get dressed up and go to the bar. Hard pass. Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah. So
2 slices on the table, me, you, out there right now. Let's go.
That's it. So I go back to work, meet my now husband at Pizza Hut again. And I was like, oh my God, man, it was great. And then so now we meet, we're dating, whatever, working like crazy, get promoted. And then I end up back at the store that I worked at in college, which was fun. And it was cool because, like, so I'm at least a decade older than all of my employees, right? Mm-hmm. Most of them are in college, not all of them. that they were different than the crews that I'd had at the other stores. And I had like good crews, like good employees, but this crew, like as a whole, nobody would leave until all the prep was done. Like they didn't just bail on each other.
Yeah.
And it was like, even if the driver's side work was done, but there was a bunch of dishes left in the other stores, the drivers would be like, all right, I'm done. I'm clocking out. Come cash me out, you know, whatever. They would all step up to help each other. And I didn't breed that. Like that was there when I got there. And I was like, well, this is really cool.
Yeah.
You guys are great, you know? And so I enjoyed being in the store. It was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of hours. And whenever I'd worked in food before, my dog was waiting on me at home. Yeah. Nobody else, you know?
Potty trained. He's
right.
good.
Right. It was like, if I had to go home real quick or like have my neighbor let him out, like it wasn't a big deal, but it got to where it was, you know, it's, and the other thing about food is it's not 9 to 5 or 8 to 5. It's, you know, like you get there at like 9, 10 a.m. and then the schedule is just a suggestion. Like if it says that I'm supposed to get off at 8 p.m., but if we're in the middle of a rush, that's a joke. I can't leave until we're done, or it's the responsible thing to do. You know,
events are going on.
Right. Or like Aggie football or, oh, it's Friday night and it's raining. Great.
Yeah.
I'm not leaving till midnight.
That's right.
You know, it's just, that's just the way that it is. Right. And so it ended up, more often than not, I was missing dinners and bedtimes. And so I was having to like step off the make line to go call and tell my kids good night. And they're crying, and, you know, and they want to, cause like if I had to leave early that morning, I didn't see them. So then I've gone the whole day and I didn't see them. And so it was a lot more of that. January 2016, my husband got fired unexpectedly. No write-ups, no warnings, nothing, just fired. And it was a huge wake-up call for me, because I was like, there's this perceived security in a paycheck, in like having a normal job. But especially in Texas, well, it's an at-will state. Like they can take it from you whenever they want for whatever reason they want, and there's not shit you can do about it, right? We were saving up, and we were in the process. We just started the process of our first home. So I was like, well, cool. And I still had to work for the guy that fired him, which was a lot of fun. Wow. So we weren't married at the time. We wanted to get married, but we couldn't both take off from our stores. Right. So he got fired on, I think, Friday or Monday. And the following Saturday, we got married in his parents' living room. Because I was like, we have time now. Yeah. Let's get married. Yeah. And he was like, all right.
You're already off.
Right. I was like, why not? Right. So he ended up getting unemployment because there was nothing, which was great.
Right.
But I was very much like, oh shit, what are we going to do? You know, like we have kids, daycare, whatever. We closed on the house, got the house at the end of March. And then in May, I gave him a month's notice. And at the end of June, I left. And my boss at the time had wanted me to give up my Sundays off. It was my only weekend day off. My son was in kindergarten, and I really didn't want to. Like I was working the hours I was supposed to work. I was working the peaks, like the lunches and dinners that I was supposed to work. Like my store was good, my numbers were good. And he was like, I just want to see if this percentage, blah, 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 whatever changes. And I was like, no, I don't want to. But I was really upset about it, because I also am like, I don't like to get in trouble, and I don't, I'm not disrespectful, but I was like, I don't see the reason to do this. And like, if you're just looking for a reason to fire me because I'm being insubordinate, you found it, because I don't want to do this.
This is my hill.
Right.
I'm willing to die on this hill. Right.
Well, and like I had been getting more and more miserable up to that point, to where it was like manifesting physically in things that were happening to me. And my thyroid was really, really off. And so all these things are happening. Like days off, I'm counting the hours until I have to go back. So even when I'm home, I'm not present. I know.
We were just talking about that before we went on air.
It sucked, and like crying on my way to work, because I really just did not want to be there. And it wasn't my crew. Like I said, my crew was amazing, especially when I was dealing with all the health challenges. Like they were wonderful. I just was like, I'm choosing them, or I'm choosing my family, work family or my family, And so after that phone call, when he asked me to give up my Sundays, I was crying like silently on the phone. And I told him, I was like, I don't want to. And he was like, okay, we'll think about it. No. But I hung up, and I knew in my heart then, like, I'm done. I'm done doing this. I can live out of my car, but I don't want my kids to live out of my car. So what is the right next step for me? Like, is it, I need to start actively looking for something else while I'm still here, because there's not a lot of time, because I have to work, like 48 hours a week. Right. Or do I just take a leap of faith and walk away I'm not against going and getting a different job. I'm just done with this. I'm done with this environment. I'm done. And so I asked my husband, and he was super, super supportive. He was like, just quit, just walk away. We'll figure it out. It'll be fine. Which is weird because he's normally not like that. Like he's normally like pessimist. Like, let's think about all the ways this is going to go horribly wrong. And I'm like,
here's
no.
every bad thing that's going to happen if you do this.
Right. That's who he is. And I'm like, no, it'll be fine. Like I'm the eternal optimist, but it was really cool. And I guess like it gave me a lot of peace, like hearing that from him. You know, he was like,
the support.
Right. He was like, you will figure it out. That's who you are. We're going to be fine. That's just a job. You can get another job. So I was like, okay. And I prayed and prayed and prayed because I had so much anxiety and worry about like, I'm making the wrong decision for my family. Like I'm putting my family in a really, really bad spot. And I just had this overwhelming peace. And I was like, okay, like I think that's the answer. It's like I've been given peace about it. I'm not anxious anymore, and I can't see the road 500 yards in front of me, but I drive in the dark anyway because I can see 100 yards in front of me, and I know that the road is going to be there. So like I just have to just go, and I think everything's going to be okay. And that was in 2016. And everything's been okay. There's been times where it gets a little scary, or you know, like math wise, I'm like, well, the number shouldn't have been there, but it worked out. In February of 2018, I brought my husband home. He was at the Dairy Queen in Caldwell, and I was doing other things on Etsy, and then I accidentally started a daycare too.
Accidentally.
So
found these kids on the road.
Yeah, like
come on.
But I called him and I was like, I need you to come home. And he was like, okay, like early, like what's going on? And I was like, no, like forever. Like I am already making more than enough money to pay our bills. Your money's just extra, but I can make up your income if you're here to help me. And he was like, are you sure? You know, because I had already taken that leap. But again, like him being like the pessimist, he was like, oh, I don't know about that.
Was he corporate? You said, where was he working?
Dairy Queen,
right?
He was
so he's corporate world still. You know, corporate world's already mistreated him over here in this other one. Now he's back in corporate world again. You know, and again, like you said earlier, and touch base back on this is there's comfort in the corporate world, right? The assumption is
it's the perceived comfort of the paycheck
security,
right?
Yeah, like you know that. Like, listen, I mean, I know Dairy Queen's not going anywhere, right? So that's your first level of comfort. So you're going. And I know that I'm good enough to do my job. So those two things match up, which means long-term security for me, for my family. And you put all that back into that, right? Not realizing like one change in that line of dominoes, which for a lot of folks that are in the corporate world, one change is one supervisor change.
That's what happened at Pizza Hut.
Oh, yeah.
We had a new area manager came in and he changed a lot of things, wanted to go in a different direction. He got rid of all of the managers except me and then one other one. And he didn't need a reason to do it. But that's what, you know, I was like, I don't want to give that much control to anybody ever again, you know, because look at where we were and what we were doing. Like we could afford at the duplex, we could afford everything just on my salary. But we're getting ready to buy a house and like double our rent, you know, and like, what are we doing? Like, why?
And not a lease.
Right. Like this is a mortgage. It's like cool. This is a 30-year commitment. Right. So it was a big thing. And so he's at Dairy Queen and I asked him that and I was like, just think about it. And some things had happened where he kind of wasn't happy. Like he'd been misled or like lied to a little bit. And so he was like, all right. So he came home and, so in 2017, so at that point I'm doing the accidental daycare. And I'm doing crochet stuff on Etsy. So I came home from the restaurant and a couple of my friends who were still in the food industry were like, hey, since you're home, can you babysit so-and-so? Because they had sitters because like.
I was waiting for you to explain that.
Right. Yeah, sorry. I say that and people are like, what? I'm like, because I like, if you knew anything about me, like I love kids and I love my kids, but I'm not, I can never be a teacher. I'm not patient enough. Right. But my friend, like I knew them and I knew their kids and like I could watch them past 5:30, which most daycares couldn't. Like when my kids were in daycare, my schedule at work was very rigid, but I had to negotiate it with the area manager before I committed to it because I was like, I'm a single mom. Like I have to leave by 5:15 to pick them up at 5:30. I cannot close. I can't work weekends unless my ex has the kids. And then I'm happy to. It's not that I don't want to step up and because, you know, those are like requirements for being in management. So my friends were kind of in the same boat. Like they had sitters, but they were teenagers, you know, off and on, whatever. And sometimes like, hey, my sitter bailed, I can't come to work or I have to bring my kid with me, stuff like that. And so I was like, yeah, sure, I can watch your kid. That's fine. I was like, extra money, whatever, you know. So then I turn around and I've got like 10 kids. and then mine. And I was like, what the hell have I done? You know, and like, it was fine. Like I was super picky about the parents that I took,
Right.
you know, more so than, and they were really young. It was fine. I'm registered through the state and licensed, whatever, blah, blah, blah now. So don't freak out. Like
somebody's over there like right now.
Right. Like I promise, like it's legit. One, like now, like we watch one kid, like it's not, I've scaled it down, but it was an accident. Like it honestly was just kind of like, oh, I'm going to help my friends. And then like, oh, well, she told her friend so-and-so who also worked in a restaurant. And I was like, you know, sure, whatever, it's fine. It was just I'm just kind of winging it and going. So I'm doing the Etsy thing. And then the same friend who pushed me to open an Etsy shop, she has a Silhouette. It's a die cutter. Mm-hmm. Kind of like a Cricut, just a different brand.
Yep.
And I asked her if she could make me a decal for my car. And she was like, yeah, come over. I'll show you how it works. And I was like, okay. You know, so I go over and she's showing it to me and it's super cool. And she says she likes some shirts and stuff that she's made. And she was like, you should get one of these. And I was like, no. We've already done this. She's like, you could do a lot with your Etsy shop. And I was like, you're not listening. We've already done this. Right. This is real dumb. And she's like, I'm just saying, because I was like, that's $200. Like that's a $200 machine. Investment. Right. Like if I mess up with yarn, I pull the hook out and pull it and then just fix it. Like what if this is expensive? No, I don't want to do this. Like I would love to have one, but I was like, I just don't, no, Jessica, no. Right. So we're waiting, and then she's like, hey, I'm just saying. So then she's like sending me like picture ideas. She's like, you could make this. You could, because she knows, she's like, you could make anything. Like, that's just who you are. And I was like, no, I don't want to do this. So Black Friday rolls around, and there's one on sale on a bundle. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. So I got it, and it sat on the shelf in my closet for like a week before I pulled it out because I was terrified.
Okay, I can still take it back.
Right. Because again, I was like, oh, it's just expensive, and it's intimidating because I'm not familiar with it. Right. So then I pull it out and I'm kind of playing around with it. I'm like, oh yeah, this is fun. So then I joined some like silhouette groups on Facebook, like to learn. And then I see, you know, people are kind of making doormats, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And at the time, my mother-in-law had 5 inside cats and 6 dogs and then some outside cats and a cat at her gym too.
She was that lady. Right. So like whenever I was dating my husband, you know, I'd go over there, and you know, like cats, like when you walk in the house, you typically don't see them. Right. And you couldn't smell it. Like it didn't smell like animals when you walk in. But then my mother-in-law would come sit in the room, and it was like this cartoon character, like pulling things out from behind her back. Like slowly these cats would appear. And I, like one time I was like, how many cats does your mom have? You know, because I'm like looking around. I was like, I didn't know that you guys had inside cats, first of all. Like I knew that you had dogs, but holy crap. And he was like, yeah, it's ridiculous. And so I was like, she should warn somebody. Like, what if I was allergic? You know? Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to make her a doormat for, I think, Mother's Day or something. And it said, just so you know, there's like a lot of cats and dogs in here. It was kind of like a sarcastic, snarky, like, there's your damn welcome and warning for people coming to your house, right? But she loved it, and she thought it was funny, and a lot of her friends and everybody thought it was funny. And Jessica was like, that's what you should do. You should make doormats. And I was like, no, this is the worst idea. Do you know how many people make doormats? You can buy a doormat for like $10 at Target. Yeah. I can't make them that cheap. Right. And she was like, no. Make them funny. Make them like you. Make the ones that you can't buy at the store. And I was like, okay, but I have to figure out a way to do it where I can make mock-ups, because like with crocheting stuff, I had to physically make the item to be able to take a picture of it, right? Yeah. And I was like, I'm not going to buy all these doormats and then make them and then just wait for them to sell. Like all of this is a much bigger investment than it did with like a $3 thing of yarn when I started, right? Yeah. So I figured out how to do a digital mock-up, and I was like, okay. And so I slowly transitioned my Etsy shop to just that, and then took the crochet stuff out, because like I was still getting orders, but then like I started getting orders in the holidays for like baby blankets and stuff, and those are really, really time consuming. Mm-hmm. But if I'm like neck deep in doormats, I don't have time to sit and make a baby blanket unless I'm staying up all night, you know? Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, this is kind of cool. Like it's taking off. So I phased out all of the crochet stuff. So now I'm doing doormats and babysitting kids. I have my husband come home, because during the day it was a whole lot of stop and go, like painting orders, you know, changing diapers and taking care of kids and all the things. So he comes home to help me, and that was fun. It's like I knew that we worked well together because we already had. But you know, like whenever you're working by yourself and you're an entrepreneur and you start and it's something that you've grown, you're used to doing everything on your own. Yeah. And then you get to the point that you're like, well, I know that I can't afford to not hire somebody or have somebody help me,
but I'm not sure what to delegate because at this point I've done everything on my own.
Well, and there's also that part of, if I do it, I know I'm going to do it right. It's going to be a one-time shot, and I'm not going to screw up a doormat that's going to have to go in the trash. I mean, you know, so yeah, releasing the control of that, control may not be the right word.
It's the right word.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the right word.
I mean, but releasing that and teaching and training somebody else that, with your husband, it's probably a little bit different. But let's say you've got an employee. They're not nearly as invested in it as you are. As much as you want to train them up. Yeah, I mean, like, hey, I do get paid for this, right? I mean, that's kind of what it becomes at that point. So, huge challenge, not just for an entrepreneur, just in general, to release some of that control back.
You're relinquishing it and going, okay, like I can delegate this. And like, it was, especially with him, like I knew I could train him. So like, that's his management style. Oh, I'll just do it myself because I want it done right the first time.
Right.
But like, whenever I got to his store, he was running the store and all of his employees were sitting around doing nothing. Yeah. And he was super stressed. And I was like, why do you do this? And he's like, because I want it done right. And I was like, train them.
Yeah.
Train, like you have, you know, like different levels of employees. And so I'm more of like, okay, I'm going to train you. And if you don't do it right, then it's just an opportunity to coach you and show you that I want it done a little differently.
That's
right. So
eventually we'll figure it out.
Right.
Or
I'm going to be like, this isn't the job for you. Let's find something else for you to do.
Promote you to somebody else.
Right. I've had to do that. I had to do that last year. So anyway, so we're rocking and rolling with the mats, and then I'm having fun with it, you know, like looking up like different phrases and things, like making sure like that it doesn't already exist, that I'm not like copying someone else's design, things like that. And when I did that, it was like real easy to get like over cause in Etsy, it's like 100 listings is kind of like the magic number. Like if you get 100 or more, like you rank higher, blah, 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 whatever. So doing the digital mock-ups, I was like, oh, this is like way easy to make all these, you know?
Right. Yeah, you can knock that out in a weekend.
Right. Like, I mean, I just took a picture of a blank doormat and then I'm just like playing with phrases and fonts and stuff and putting it over it. So I did that. And they're taking off and I'm having more fun with it and trying to think like, again, like what can I do like to set myself apart? Because there's a lot of, and at the time there were not as many people doing doormats as there are now. But there were a good amount. But most of them were the typical, you know, like pretty welcome, you know, or last name or whatever. And so I want to do different. I want to do ones you can't buy in the store that your neighbors are not going to have, that also make people laugh or smile, at least when they come to your front door. Like that's my goal. And it allowed me to be me, you know, like express my personality and be true to who I am, which I could never do in restaurants. Like I had my personality like with my crew and stuff, but you know, when you work in customer service, you have to put your customer service hat on, and there's a mold that you very much have to fit into.
Sure.
And so it was kind of freeing to like, well, I can do whatever the hell I want with this, and nobody can tell me any differently. Like, so, and I knew like, I'm going to attract certain clients and I'm going to repel certain clients, and that's okay. Yeah. Like, I'm really, really okay with it. So we're going and I'm having fun with it and doing different things. And then where are we at now? So we're trying to get pregnant, and I'll get pregnant and then miscarry by the time I get to 8 weeks because my thyroid. So 2018, July, I get pregnant with Ellie. And I don't lose her. And like anybody who's lost a baby or pregnancy, it doesn't matter where, like once you're snake bit, it's always there. You know? So it's like, I don't want to be hopeful. Like I don't want to get attached. Right. Yeah. And so like, I mean, at this point we've had like 15 miscarriages and I'm like, okay, well, you know, we'll see, whatever. And so we're working, and I don't lose her, and she's our only together. So we're super excited. Working, but then scaling down the daycare because I was like, I don't want to have all these kids whenever I have a baby and I'm recovering from a C-section and I'm trying to breastfeed and all the things, you know, and just shifting things, you know. Up until that point it was, oh, well, we can handle both because these kids go home by 5:30, blah, blah, blah. It's fine. Raising our kids, I homeschooled before it was like cool, before it was like
it was COVID,
before it was mandated, right? Well, and I feel so bad for the parents that like got forced into it because I very much believe that that's not something that you should be forced to do. I understand like they're doing what they have to do, but I'm like, no, that's a choice that you should have to make because there are certain days that the bus would drive by that I still was like, wait, you know. Like,
my wife and I found out very quickly that we suck at trying to teach our kids. Anything,
it's hard
really, when it comes down to it.
It's hard,
and that was forced. That was back when, you know, in March or whatever, 2020, where they're like, we're going to finish this thing online. And you're like, I ain't going to finish it.
Oh, it's fine. And then you're like slamming the computer.
Yeah. You're like, whose idea was this?
Yeah,
When does school start back up again?
It's horrible, right?
Yeah.
So I feel really bad for all those parents because my kids, my Aiden and Amelia, they have very, very different learning styles. And I knew that like just from like trying to teach them their alphabet and phonics whenever they like 2 and 3. And so I knew like I had to adapt and help, but I was like, I can teach my kids, smack them around if they get lippy.
That's right.
But, different than like being like a classroom teacher, but it's been a lot like to juggle, but I have really, really enjoyed that my family has access to me all day, unless like this or like meetings or whatever, like they see me more, even if I'm working 40 or 50 hours a week, I'm at home. So they see me more than they would if I was working somewhere else. Right.
And they see what you're doing while you're there.
Right. Well, and like we've talked a lot and it's really cool, like being an example for them. Like, my son talks about like he wants to work in a restaurant. Really, really. And I'm not discouraging him. I'm like, we got a while till you get there. But he enjoys cooking and he enjoys food. And so like we've tried to foster that. My daughter is an engineer. Like she loves making things and she's super, super creative. And so it's, again, like she watches us and the dynamic in our home is a little bit different too. So like my husband's dream job was to be a stay-at-home dad. And I was like, wish granted, baby. Yeah. So he's home, but like, yeah, pretty much, right? I wouldn't eat if it weren't for that man. Yeah. Like, cause I'll be working all day and doing this, but he's cooking and he's taking care of the kids and hanging out. And like, that's his job is he does like, if I need help with doormats or boxing or whatever, like he'll do it, but he's a stay-at-home dad and he's like, sweet, I love it. But I like that my kids get to see like dad's in the kitchen, dad's changing diapers, like dad, cause that's it wasn't the norm for me growing up. And even whenever I was with my ex, because he worked, like he didn't do any of those things. Right. It was the female role. So we like that I've been able to provide that example for the kids. It's a lot of fun and it's unconventional for sure. So then where are we at? We're in 2000, baby was born in 2019, April 2019, she's born. And then, I'm not.
So before we get too far down the road here, your crochet shop on Etsy turned into Atlas basically at that point, or was it always Atlas even when it was crochet?
It was English House Crafts. My last name with my ex was English. Okay. And then we split up, and I was like, well, I need to change my shop name. Yeah. That's not my last name anymore.
I'm not giving you any credit for that.
Right. No, sir. So, he wasn't supportive, so he shouldn't get any credit.
That's right. This is me, baby.
We get along really well. We co-parent really well. Yeah. Like we've always been, because we both came from broken homes. Yeah. And so we were always like, even if this doesn't work out, kids first, no matter what. Yeah, awesome. We don't fight in front of them. So we have a really good relationship, and I'm very grateful for him. He's remarried. She's wonderful to my kids. They're great. But he was not supportive of my Etsy venture. He was like, you should be spending more time with the kids, blah, 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 whatever. And there were weeks that I was like, the only reason we bought groceries is because I'm on Etsy. Yeah. But
thanks for my crocheting.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Right. So
this is milk right here.
Exactly. Well, I mean, at the end of the week, I'm like, I made $300 this week. Like definitely wasn't getting rich, but like, for being a single income household, and the income was not extravagant, like that extra money helped. Like even if it was $50, if it was a $50 blanket, like cool, I can make a week's worth of groceries work on $50 if I have to. Yeah. So I changed the shop name, and I've had people go, what does that mean? And I'm like, hell if I know. I was playing around with words. I knew that I wanted Belle like to signify a female owner, but I didn't want Southern Belle, like there's Southern Belle Boutique, blah, 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 whatever. And I'm not knocking them, but it in my mind, it carries a certain like imagery with it. And that's not what I wanted.
That wasn't your imagery.
Right.
You're like,
and so I was like,
Southern Belle has not been associated with my name.
That's not me at all. And then I like studio because it doesn't tie me down to one specific thing. Right. Like it wasn't like Atlas Belle crochet items or Atlas Belle doormats. It kind of encompasses, but now people go, where's your studio? And I'm like, it's in half my garage. Like we've converted, like it's at my house. It's just,
come on into my studio.
It sounds real fancy. Yeah. Right.
My husband's in the back of the studio making lunch.
It's fine. Not a big deal. It's, a little 1,200 square foot house. It's fine. When I said, we have 4 kids now. One of them is with us part of the time. And my father-in-law also lives with us. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths.
Filling it out.
3 dogs. It's a little bitty. But I mean, we've made it work. And I'm
a garage full of mats. And
well, and like literally, so the people that had the house before us, they had 6 kids and only one of them was a boy. I think the oldest was a boy. They homeschooled all of them. They're really, really wonderful people. They're very sweet. We've met them since then, you know. But they had converted half the garage. They put like a temporary wall up, and then they also built like a little room for the son to get away from his sisters. I
need an escape.
Right. So we tore down the walls that made the room, but we kept the big one up, and then we got AC put in. Vents put in, so it's like my laundry room's over there, but then like all the rest of it is my workspace.
Yeah,
we made it work.
Becomes your work studio.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's we'll do there. I say that like loosely. Do that. So we'll paint mats in there. Like if we're really slammed, like there's 2 stations to paint mats in there, and then we can do it. It started on the kitchen counter, like because I could look and see the kids real quick and be painting and doing it there. So we do that. In the fall of 2019. One of my really good friends asked me if I had ever considered doing events, like painting parties, like, you know, go. And I was like, that sounds real stupid.
This wasn't Jessica, right?
No, this wasn't Jessica. This was...
I mean, she's come up with all these other great ideas.
So she hardcore gets credit for those first 2 because I would not have done it if she hadn't consistently pushed me. I didn't believe in myself. I was like, nobody's going to, you know, that's really, really
well, dumb. Everything you've described so far, every step is kind of like, yeah.
We'll see. Yeah. Right. Like, I was just like, I don't know, because am I going to be able to set myself apart enough that this is worth it?
Right.
You know, because it's like the same as someone says, oh, I'm going to sell jewelry. Like, that's cool. Do you know how many people sell jewelry? Yeah. Like, I'm not saying don't do it, but what are you going to do so that you're a standout? What's going to make you different? Because that's right. There's a lot of noise in that crowd.
Sure.
Like, so kind of the same.
Yeah.
So my friend Stephanie, I went to high school with her. She asked me about doing events. And again, I was like, I think people want to paint their own doormats, because she'd been at my house and like seen me do it, you know, and helped. And like my process with the stencils and everything, I don't use vinyl for my stencils. I use cardstock.
Yeah.
I tried vinyl once and I was like, F this. This is horrible. I fought with it the whole time. And like, I've worked with vinyl, but just doing it that way, like it wanted to stick to itself, because you can't.
Your cardstock's stiffer. You can work with a little bit better.
But then I can hang it up and let it dry and then reuse it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I saw your setup. So, and you're meticulous about it, because there's a ruler out, because it's got to be this has to be so many inches up. This has to be so many inches up. Right. And then what kind of tape are you taping that down with?
Just painter's tape.
Okay. I saw it tape. It almost looked like cutting tape almost, or something. It was real thin.
My husband, Stephanie ordered my husband 3 rolls of really, really skinny.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I saw in the picture.
Tape? Yeah.
So I was like, I was looking at your setup when you were setting this mat up in order to paint it, and I'm like, man, there's a lot, because people are just going to kind of eyeball it, square it up here. My cardstock should be center, but I mean, you're looking at it like.
But you can't tell if it's not until you get done and you pick up the stencil and you go, shit.
Yeah.
Like
you're like, this is no good.
And then, okay, well, there's a $10 mat going in the trash because you can't save it. You can't do anything with it.
Yeah.
Right.
So to back up a little bit, you're in a market when you're creating this deal, because I'm walking back through your thought process here. Because you're sitting there, I sat in here with an entrepreneur talking about, like, somebody could go buy something similar to what you do, and it's $19.99 at the store, right, or whatever. And she's charging, in this tumblers, she's charging $50 for it. But it's also the idea of exactly what you're describing. You're not going to find what I make somewhere else. Or let's say you have an idea for what you want on there, and I can make that come true for you to exactly what you want, that you're not going to find in a store. Right. But in order for me to specialize that, it's going to cost X. And X is going to look a lot different than the $15 doormat that you're going to pick up at a Walmart or a Hobby Lobby or wherever you're buying these things from. And so you're now in the market of going, okay, welcome, all that other stuff, that's all off the table. I'm not interested in those things unless you're interested in those things as a customer.
And then
I'll
be happy to make that.
But it's
customer.
not going to be in my repertoire of baseline stuff. When I'm putting 100 things up on Etsy, nobody's coming to Etsy looking at my page to go, welcome on a mat. They want something.
They want funny stuff that says, like, beware ferocious attack rabbit.
Yeah, the one that I saw was the Clark Griswold one.
Yeah. Not 2020, but 2019. That was my bestseller for Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Well, you had like 4 people, I think. Yeah. I don't know if you did a class on it or something, but I saw like 4 people's.
Some people did them at classes, and then I had people, like, whenever I would go set up as a vendor at different different events. People would buy that one, or they would order it and then come pick it up.
Yeah, again, because it's unique. You don't see it anywhere in the market. Now, maybe I can go find something similar on another Etsy page or whatever. But then how much of your business is local business?
A lot of it now.
Yeah.
Like as I've grown. So like last fall, or not, I say that, I'm still pretending that we're in 2020. I don't know why. In 2019, fall of 2019, I started doing vendor events. And then I was at First Friday at Ruby Grace, and the co-owners of the Women Entrepreneurs Group, came to my table. And I'd kind of heard about the group from Frankie Wiley from Specialties Photography. She was coming to pick up cloth diapers for her soon to be born granddaughter or whatever. And so we got to start talking, and she was like, have you heard of this group? And I said, no. And so I looked it up on Facebook, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I feel like it's got a lot of potential. It's a really cool place to have, like-minded and that like safe dumping ground, for like asking for ideas or making connections or whatever. Cause up to that point, I hadn't been able to surround myself with people that were like-minded or people that work for themselves.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody, and I've been here since 2006. I just didn't know anybody.
Well, so if the majority of your business is local, that also means, look, I got to protect my name and my business model as well too, to represent that these people are in my backyard, not literally, but I mean, they're here. So they're going to be referrals. They're going to be people who will, it's going to be a talking point for somebody that shows up at somebody's doorstep.
Right.
And anybody that comes to your house is going to walk across it. Right. I mean, so it's not like it's something that's going to change. But in my head, while you're talking, I'm thinking, okay, then there's holidays, there's a Valentine's, there's an Easter, there's, and you're
So like a doormat is something like typically you change like every season because it gets worn out, and then you have special holiday ones, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like I got this cute wall sign, but I don't really need like a bunch of wall signs because it's not going to get worn out. Nothing's going to happen to it.
Well, and it is an out of sight, out of mind item. Like you buy it, you throw it down, you really don't think about it again.
And then you look down and you go, it looks like shit. I need to get a new one.
Well, and the next time you think about it is somebody comes over and goes, that's a cool doormat. Where'd you get
it? Yeah.
So again, it becomes a talking point that for you, the business card is literally sitting on the front door of all of these people that are doing it, whether they're taking a class on it or whether they're ordering it special through you and having you do it.
Right.
What do you think your percent is? I mean, do classes, well, let's back this up. Classes.
So I started in fall of 2019. Stephanie was like, you should do these.
Where were you doing these at?
So I started doing them just in people's homes. So like I thought about it because I had to work out the logistics of like, okay, well, if I do this, what does it look like? Like, am I taking a bunch of stencils that I already have? Am I letting them like custom pick a design? And if I do that, it's fine, but I have to have them enough in advance so that I have time to cut and put all the stencils together, blah, 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 take them to paint, whatever. It's fine. I'll just figure it out. We'll do it live. It's fine. Whatever. Like that's how I just always roll that way. So I messaged a couple of people, messaged my sister-in-law and some other friends from East Texas, some friends from here, like, hey, would you be interested in having a doormat painting party? This is what it looks like. I'll bring everything. Like, if you'd rather run me over, it's fine. Like, cause like
I can be the doormat.
Right. Like I felt really bad, like I'm not trying to put you out, and it's not like, like a salesy, like an MLM message or anything, but just like I've got this idea that a friend told me about. People do the painting with a twist. People do the board and brush thing, but this is like, I'm bringing it to you in your home with your group of people where you feel a little more comfortable, kind of like to let loose than you would like in a public setting with other people. Right.
Yeah. That
was the idea. And they all said yes, that they would love to do it. They were like, I've never heard of that. I've never considered it. Let me ask my friends. We made Facebook events and did it. And then pretty quickly I was able to tell like, okay, I need to change this. I need to get more of this. I need blah, blah, blah. Cause I'm there by myself setting up. So like if it's a larger party, it takes a little bit longer, but they're drinking and snacking and talking and having fun. And it very, very quickly became a thing. And then so I also kind of like put on a comedy show, like because people will start and they're either super excited or nervous or both. But when they start painting, it's real quiet because they're concentrating. Focused, right. And they're like, I don't want to mess it up. And I'm like, it's a $10 doormat. It's not that big of a deal. Like I can fix almost anything.
So something that people probably don't know. So my mom, being a single mom, one of the things she used to do something called Tri-Chem. Tri-Chem was a painting party. Literally the same kind of deal. Not the same kind of deal. I mean, it's tube painting. You could paint on material. You could paint on all these different things. But she would do the same thing. Her goal in selling this was to sell the paints and sell the kits and do all that other stuff. But she'd go to somebody's house. They'd have this little gathering. They'd all paint their little deals and stuff. And then at the end of all that, okay, you've had a chance to use the paints. What do you think? And she's trying to sell it on the backside. It didn't generate a lot of money. It was expensive. But it was... most entrepreneurs that I sit down in here talk about the experience. Mm-hmm. You're really not paying for the doormat. The doormat is the end result, right? But the in between is really what matters. Right. It's getting friends together. It's glasses of wine going out. Yeah, and it's laughing, and this is cool, and this isn't anything I thought it was going to be. Now, in my head, are you doing stencils on the fly while you're in there?
No, so I'll create a Facebook event, and then whoever is hosting the party, I make them a co-host, and they invite all their friends.
Got it.
And that's all they have to do, because I don't want them to have to be the middleman relaying information back and forth. Like, I put the ticket link on there for people to pay for their spots, and then I'll put information, I'll drop a bunch of pictures, like examples, doormats that I've made, doormats that have been made at other parties, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then I'll tell them, you can draw inspiration from anywhere. Like, here's my Etsy shop. If you want to go look and see over 100 designs that I have, mm-hmm. you can look on Pinterest. If you already know, like, you want one with your last name on it, whatever design you want, either type it out here or mm-hmm. like if you have an example picture, I'm not going to copy that design, but I'll do something similar.
Right.
Drop it here on the event page.
But specifying that to their request, which may be their family name, that whatever. But you're doing all the pre-prep work before you show up.
This is before. And so like on the event, I'll tell them, like, I need all the design requests no later than like 2 days before the event, because I have to design and cut and piece together all the stencils.
Right.
Inevitably, people wait till last minute. Whatever. Like, I've had people, like a couple of hours before the party, like if it's a local party, like, hey, is it too late? And I'm like, what do you want? Like, what do you want on it? Like, because if it's something intricate, yes, it's too late. But if it's something super simple, like a phrase or just your last name, I can do that. That's fine.
Right.
But I figure that, like, if I put it at 2 days, like it typically gives me enough of a buffer for those last minute tricklers. It's fine.
Are you piecing this together at your house before you transport it?
Unless I don't have time. Yes.
Right.
So like during the holidays, it gets a little crazy, just parties and events and stuff are stacked on top of each other. So I'll at least have them cut. And then whenever I get there, I'll piece them together pretty quickly. So I don't have the fancy equipment that you have out there. So my cutter is just 12 inches wide. Yeah. Right. So, and I use, cardstock. So it's 8.5 by 11.
Right.
So I'm cutting the design for a 30 by 18 mat or a 35 by 24, and then just piecing the pieces of paper together.
Yeah, you may use 4 pieces to create an entire stretch across
and that's on a small one. Right. So do that, get them all together, load up now we've got, it's a system and it's down, it's a box with all the paint and there's squeeze bottles and the brushes and the cups and the napkins and all the things. So I started. So
for people that don't know, I guess we should probably bring them in the loop here a little bit. Coconut mats.
It's coir. They're coir. It's coconut fiber mats. No, you're fine.
That's a customer habit there of throwing in coconut as it. But these are all blank when you're initially starting.
Yes.
And then they're basically, as a party or as a class, because really it's probably classified either way. You've got all of these bookings that are happening. People are prepaying. Mm-hmm. So when you show up, like, hey, you've already paid for this. This is what it is.
Like when I go, I know how many I'm going to have, unless it's, so like after the first fall season that I did it, I started doing them, in restaurants, kind of to help because of COVID, because like now I know, like, I can draw a crowd. Like, I have, like, people want to come to these.
Right.
So if I come to your restaurant and I do one, like, you're not charging me an overhead for the place to host it, because I can find anywhere to host them.
Sure.
My goal is to bring people who then will buy food and drinks from your restaurant, and we both win.
But you can basically co-brand here, like, get your stuff in front, but I can bring them to your place.
Like, you're having this cool event, it's local, and then all these people are going to come shop at your place. Right? Yeah. So in February of 2020, I was booked all the way through June. And then we shut down.
Yeah.
And they had to cancel all of them. And I was like, well, there's thousands of dollars gone.
Yeah, because nobody's getting together. Yeah, there's nobody getting together.
Right. Well, I mean, it was, like up to it, kind of like whispers, like before March, I had some and they were like, should we cancel? And I was like, I don't want you to do anything that you're not comfortable with. I also don't want any negative blowback, like, should we? You
don't want to be the business that has your name attached to a super spreader.
I don't want anybody to feel like we're being irresponsible, because it's definitely not what it was. Like, there was a lot of talk and like, I don't know what the right thing is, because if we say no and we cancel it, like, people are going to be mad and disappointed that we canceled the event.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like talking about like, okay, well, here's what I'm comfortable with. Here's what you as a business owner are comfortable with, and we'll apologize and move forward, because at the time it was, we have no idea what in 2 weeks, what anything's going to look like. Right. So it's just kind of, playing it.
Yeah. And then the same deal, that you don't want your business to have that attached to it. People in general didn't want to have a gathering attached to their name that potentially created something or put a loved one, a friend or whatever at risk.
Right.
So you go virtually to zero, probably.
Yes.
Yeah. And
very quickly.
Yeah.
Before that, I had considered doing like kits that I could ship, because I had a lot of people on social media that live too far for me to drive, or they live out of state, that really wanted to do parties. But unless you have like 20 or 30 people and you live in Oklahoma, it's not gonna be worth it for me to drive, and I like it so I was, again, like the logistics, like how do I, and I hadn't really given it a whole lot of thought, because I was like, people do what they have to do. Right. And at the time I didn't have to do it, but I was real hung up on the stencil part, because if the stencil gets torn or messed up, you don't have a party. Like, I was driving to a party in East Texas. We were on Highway 6 and we had the big turtle thing on top of my SUV and it wasn't shut all the way. And the doormats were in there and the stencils were on top, and it blew open. I heard it open, and my husband and I both looked, because I thought we'd hit something. And then I looked in the rear view, looking at the road, thinking we'd hit something. And my stencils are hitting the road and being torn up by other cars. And I just was crushed, like, because that's it. Like, I spent hours putting those together. We have a 2.5 hour drive. There's no go home and recut them real quick and go and make the party on time. Like, that's it. It's done. Yeah. And I was like,
freestyle.
Shit. Yeah. Right. I felt really horrible. And like the lady that was hosting, like, she was one of my coaches in high school, and I felt, and I was like, she's going to think I'm full of shit. Yeah. But I was just, I was like, I can't save it. Like, there's nothing I can do. This was a learning opportunity for both of us. We got home. My husband was so upset. He was, honey, I didn't. And I was like, it was an accident. Like, it's fine. This was learning. Like, the stencils never, ever, ever don't go in the back of the car. Right. Like, they go in the car. That's fine. From here on out. Right. It's cool. So it was fine. But so that was, playing in my mind, like, I can just see if I ship this flat with the stencil, because I typically ship the doormats flat, just like sandwiched between cardboard. Right. If I ship it flat with the stencil on it, but something happens and it gets torn, they're going to get it and it's going to be useless.
Yeah, same concept. Like,
right. And I don't want to do that.
Hey, by the way, Brittany, those came and they're not any good to me.
Now what do I do? Well, I can't send you a stencil and roll it up, because then how are you going to get it to? So it was just all of these, like, I felt like I was like, it's just too many moving pieces. I'll worry about it later. Yeah. So then shutdown happens. We have to cancel all those events. And so very quickly I was like, I have to pivot. I got to figure something out. So I launched the kits, the doormat painting kits. So what I did was I made designs specific for the kits that have like flowers and stuff on them. And I paint the outline. And it has words, like it'll say hello or welcome or whatever, but it's got more stuff for you to color in. And I'd made one just to make it as a doormat, like pretty springy, it said hello and had flowers, and I hadn't colored it in. And then I colored it in, and that's kind of what I was like, this is how I can do it. Right. If I send them this, it's like a big coloring sheet. Yeah. Now I just have to figure out, it's easy. Like, it's idiot proof, right? Like, it shouldn't cause you anxiety. It's a lot of fun. You can customize it however you want. I just got to figure out the paint. What do I do? Okay. So then I'll go get those little like 50-cent bottles from Walmart, send some brushes. All right, cool. Let's go. So I launched them on social media. And again, I was like, I have no idea if this is going to take off, but we'll see. I got to try something. Yeah. Something versus nothing. So I sold like 50 in the first week. Nice. And I was like, all right, cool. So I'd like go to the looks I got in Walmart, because I'd get the cart and like book it to the paint and like all the little bottles that I could get of the colors that I used. So my cart would be full and people would be looking.
Brittany, do you have a school?
Right. Like, no, I'm repainting my house. It's fine. Yeah. Like, I get like that, or like whenever we go get doormats, we'll have like these big like carts stacked full, and people are like, what are you, doormats, huh? And I'm like, recarpeting my house. Yeah. Or like, I'm real sick of the grass and the ants, so I'm just throwing this outside instead. And they kind of look at me and I'm like,
we're going for that Arizona look where it's just all brown.
Rock outside. Garden. Yeah. So it's, of course, I'm like a smart ass about it, but I got really interesting looks. But then it got harder to find paint, because everybody's staying at home and they want something to do, right? So then I'm like, quit buying my paint. I need this. So then we again had to adapt. Like, the kits are doing really well. I had to buy like bigger things of paint and then get smaller jars to put it into, which ended up being like more cost effective. But again, it was just, I'm just rolling with it. Like, okay, this is working. People are buying these. People are giving these as gifts to people, you know, to cheer them up because of the shutdown or for Mother's Day or whatever. I also started sewing. I've known how to sew forever. I have a sewing machine that my uncle bought me a long time ago. It's my least favorite hobby. Before the masks were mandatory, like some of my friends, you know, they're like first responders or they work in pharmacies or they have relatives or friends that work in pharmacies and they were wearing the same mask for like a week or two. And if they could wear a cloth mask, I was like, okay, cool. So I started making them and I was just taking donations of either like fabric or like people were like, here's $10, here's $20. Like, so I could go buy more materials to donate like bags full to these groups. And then people were talking about they were hurting their ears. And so then I was like, okay, let me play with this design and see if I can come up with one that, you know, like has straps, but it doesn't pull in your ears, like for people that have to wear them all day.
Right.
And then somebody from the We group asked me if I could make one and then put vinyl on it for the HEB manager or the TowerPoint one. Charles. Right. So I said, yeah, I can do that. So I made him two that said they were red and they say HEB and they have the straps so they don't pull in his ears and it has a little smiley face. And then he sent me this list of like all of his employees wanted them and they were paying for them, you know? And I was like, okay. And then that kind of snowballed because then I started offering that design. And for a lot of people, the people that were having to wear them were having to wear them all day.
Right.
Like, cause they were essential workers. They're still having to go to work and do it. And so then I was like, I had like April and May of 2020 were my busiest months in business to date because of masks and because of the Doormat kits.
Right.
Like it was insane. And I was working a ridiculous amount of hours. I couldn't sew fast enough. It's just me. I hired my first employee and then my second employee and my third employee because of that. Because, and it was like that. Okay. I got another sewing machine. Let me see. That's not the job for you. Okay, we'll find something else for you to do. So I ended up, my most recent employee, she was really, really good at sewing, but it took going through and like, okay, well, that's fine. You can't do that, but you can paint doormats and you can box them. So I'm gonna have you do this over here instead, you know, just kind of moving around. So we did that. Still make masks a little bit. You know, once everything kind of opened back up and then like manufacturing production and you could buy them in stores, it dropped off. But it was fun.
Yeah, all of a sudden people, you know, we laugh about it because when we were in that portion, the same time frame you're talking about, people would ask us, how are you doing? And I go, well, you know, we used to be a screen print and embroidery company that's turned into a mask company. You know, and it started as people walk, you know, do you guys sell masks? Well, let us check some of the vendors that we have. We'll see what we can come up with. And then we find a couple of vendors that are doing it. And we're like, okay. And we order a couple samples and that kind of starts. But then all of a sudden we're looking at it going, dude, like we are getting a lot of requests for these. Like we're going to have to start figuring where this source is going to come from. Like, and let's don't go out because all of the sudden in 2020, especially March and April, being a mask company like was the thing to do. And so we were going to vendors that had opened their business in March of 2020. We weren't real sure what we were getting. We were a little nervous as a business to be dealing with those kind of companies because they were, I hate to say the word, but they were fly by night. Pop open, make money, close down. And that was kind of what it became. So we went to a staple line of it. But it didn't stop. It just kept going. School starts up. Hey, we're going to need, you know, 2,000 for this high school and 2,000 for this high school. And so, you know, it for us, it became very quickly that we had to pull in sources to be able to do that.
Right. If I'm going to consistently fill these, I got to.
Right. But now that in the retail world, you know, you walk into a place and the first thing you see, they're right at the door. Here's our mask, you know, go to a Buc-ee's and you can get a Bucky Beaver mask and all the other stuff that's in there. So, I mean, they're all over the place now. So the trend has died. No, not the trend. The request has died off because they are everywhere. Available. Yeah, they are everywhere. And most people aren't thinking in mask of just going, I want this so personalized and all that other stuff. They're just like, gotta have like one for this car, one for that car.
My kid loses them.
Oh yeah. So I mean, if you go to my truck right now, I literally have 12 in my truck that are just thrown in there.
So you always
yeah. So what's really funny is somebody gets into my truck and this is real life, and I'm sure everybody can relate to this. Did you bring your mask? No, I forgot it. Here, pitch it to the back. You know, so
I've done that.
So,
Kaylee
but again,
actually has one of my backup masks because I've had a couple.
Yeah, you're going with where the river is taking you. So, I mean, you see that
to.
there's a demand there.
Right.
And the requests are coming in. And so you're like, oh, listen, man.
And then it was
ship now and get on this.
People started being able to go back to work, they wanted their business logo on
Yeah.
it. You know, because they're like, well, I feel like it just kind of adds that personal touch. Or, you know, like if they're a realtor or something, like they don't have a uniform, but it was just something. And so like, well, I do vinyl, I do shirts. Yeah, I can do that too. That's nothing to slap those on there. Brazos Hospice Valley reached out to me and they wanted to partner to do a 1-for-1 program. So we did that. So like if you bought one of the fitted ones, I donated one of the rectangular ones with the elastic earlobe because it's easier for the elderly to put those on.
Yeah.
So we did those. I think we were up to like 300 something. It was ridiculous. Like that was a whole lot of orders. And it was really, really cool because I underestimated how well that would do. And how, cause I was like, not many people are going to want, cause both of them came with the logo. I was like, nobody's going to want to wear a mask that says Brazos Hospice Valley. I was wrong. I was so wrong. But I mean, it was great. Like I was very happy. I was very grateful. You know, I was like, I would love to do this to give back. That's fine. I just need to make enough money that it covers the supplies. It's cool.
Yeah. Who knew that mask would be something that you would, mix and match to your outfits? I mean, you know, like I need a blue one. I need a red one.
My husband wants a black one and then he also needs navy and it was crazy.
All right. So you turn into not completely into a mask business, but this is something again that you stretch out and start another line of business to that. What else did you have your hand in during all that time?
I mean, so the We Group, I mean, we had a whole lot of things planned, you know, like classes and all kinds, but we had to cancel all that. We've been able to pivot that a lot. And I'm really excited about this year, you know, just in the world of Zoom now, like everybody's used to it. And whereas before, like, I feel like if we would have offered like, hey, we're doing this class or like somebody's coming to speak / teach about, social media marketing. I don't want to Zoom. Like, which can we do this in a hotel conference room? You know, now and everybody's like, cool, can I get the Zoom link? Where's like, I'll pay $10, whatever for that. So we've got a couple of things changing there. And I had made other stuff before that was not the dorm. Like, so my husband hammers, you know, just like regular, like 288 from Walmart would handle either wood burn a message on it, like make the stencil with vinyl and color, and you know, wood burn it, or just put vinyl on it and then seal it, you know, like a Happy Father's Day, Dad, you know, or Grandpa, I love building memories with you. Right. My favorite is a pregnancy announcement. Dad, thanks for nailing Mom. You know, funny stuff like, you know, but those are like very specific, like holiday items like that, or like I sell boxers with on the left leg, like it'll say nice and it has a rooster on it. There's some other sayings, but it's like Valentine's Day is the big thing for those, you know. So like for those holidays, that's all I was selling, you know. For like 2 weeks, I'm like working like crazy doing these hammers or doing boxers, and my husband was just, he'd stand there and look at me and like this pile of stuff on the table, and he's just like, hammers, like, did you ever think? And I was like, no, I didn't, but it's what we're selling, and I'm just going with it, and it's fine, you know. But again, it's very specialty, you know, like funny, whatever. Well, on brand.
You've managed to bring in line things that I don't want to say don't exist, may not exist in this market, or may not be commonly seen in the market. And so it's really being able to raise up to something that doesn't exist to create the thing that now people need or didn't know they needed.
They're like, oh, I totally need that for this
or the
holiday.
Uniqueness of it. Again, the uniqueness is really kind of where it fits, and that starts all the way back at where you're at the mats. You know, it's like, I don't want to create something that you can just get anywhere. I want to create something that
I want to stand apart.
And really drives the demand back to me, and not off into another world of, you know, Etsy shopping and Amazon.
I don't want to just look like another shop, you know.
And staying local, you know, so that again, this is your backyard. This is really kind of what you want to ensure that your name carries value as your business grows, and that people are looking at. But you know, again, word of mouth, I don't know that I can stress enough in it. And you know, one of the things that we had on the sheet that we were talking about advertising. You know, and that's a tough avenue to be in, especially when you start working things virtually, because it's not as simple. I spent time in here talking to Dallas, and you know, Dallas got 6-shooter marketing, and we're discussing, you know, you want to hope as a small business owner that you're just going to like put this thing on Facebook and it's just going to grow legs and run, right? But then you start quickly understanding, like you were talking earlier, the algorithms and all those things that are attached to that, they're constantly moving.
Right.
Like you figure it out, and as soon as you figure it
It's
out,
changed.
something else has
Right.
moved again. I heard somebody saying something to the effect of, what was it? You have 100,000 customers. Let's say you have 100,000 people that you can reach on social media, but only 3,000 will see your post. And people would look at that. If you're not in the business world, in the personal world, you always see these little posts where people are like typing on there, if you can see this message, reply to it. And it's really just kind of the idea of going, how many people are actually seeing this message?
Right.
But you know that, I got 3,000 friends. I know 3,000 people aren't seeing this. But if you really look at the equation, only 90 are probably seeing it.
Right.
And then that may change. It may modify again. But a lot of that is also based on the interaction with your posts that you put up. You don't get a lot of interaction on it, then it just gets buried a little further.
Right, it's just
and
going to
it
get
just
lost.
doesn't get seen. So some of the stuff that's popped up on some of these pages have been things like, what can you do to help small businesses grow and get their advertisement out there? Well,
Like their posts, share their posts,
yes,
tag their friends.
interact with the post.
It makes such a difference, and it costs you nothing except for a little bit of time.
Yeah, because the algorithms are basically looking like you put the post out, how many people were really interested in this?
How much attention did it get?
Yes,
Right.
from your friends or from your line of influence that you're getting to. And so if people are just looking at it and just pass over it and scroll past it, and later on they want to tell you about, hey, that was kind of cool that you did that, but they didn't hit a like button. Well,
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, it didn't do anything.
Right.
Like you didn't do anything to help me garner the
Right.
next post being that much more visible.
Right.
So the more interaction you have with it, liking, commenting, replying to something,
Tagging
whatever.
people, sharing.
Just something. Interacting with it then creates the next post's stretch.
Right.
And the more interaction you have with each post that you go,
It's a
the
ripple
more,
effect.
more the next one will push further out.
Right.
So then that leads us into some things that you stretched into. I told you I was going to come around to this, and then I told you I don't even need you to explain it to me. I'll let you explain it to the listeners that are on here. Taste bud torture Tuesday, right? This is on your Instagram. Is it on Instagram?
It's on
That's where I
Instagram
found
and
it.
Facebook.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So it gets a lot of
You
of
had a
traction.
lot of opportunity that you didn't seize. You could have had something really weird to make me eat.
I know, but I needed you to explain this. Like, I have a neighbor that anytime something odd goes on around our neighborhood, especially if it's happening at my house, there's a picture taken and the text goes through and it just simply says, "Explain this?" ? That's it, right? Like, and it's all in fun, but that's exactly what I am like seeing when I see there is a bag that shows up in your post. And I'm going to let you walk everybody through this because it does garner. It doesn't have anything to do with what you're doing.
No.
There's not a coconut mat in there.
I'm not selling anything. I don't make
money.
money off of promoting the gross food that I eat. Nothing.
Right.
Nothing.
But it's on your page of all the other stuff that you're doing. And it's gotten traction. Like, people are interacting with it, right?
Yeah.
So tell everybody about
Taste Bud
Torture Tuesday.
So the very first employee that I hired, she's one of my best friends now. Her name is Kaylee Cooper. I hired her just to kind of help. She does social media management now. I've built her business. But she was helping with my social media and helping me do, organize and whatever. And she brought over the Trolls Oreos that had Pop Rocks in the icing of the Oreos. And I was like, what is wrong with you? And she was like, I wanted you to try it. Like, I'm kind of undecided on like if I like it or not. So I ate one and she filmed me, and my face is real loud in general. Like I don't hide it. Yeah. And I got these giant eyeballs. I just don't hide anything. And so like, it was a lot to eat that, cause it's like exploding, but like the candy goes against like the chocolate and the cream. And I was like, I don't like this. This is awful. And so it was kind of funny and we had a good time with it. And then she was like, so I have this idea. And I was like, I'm a little nervous, but okay. And she was like, you make really good faces when you eat stuff you don't like. And I was like, I definitely don't like where this is going. And she was like, what if it's like a thing like that we do every week? And I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, that sounds really
At
awful.
my expense is what
right.
you're
Like
saying.
you're not having to eat the gross shit. I am. Like, what am I going to eat? And she was like, well, that's going to be part of it, is it's going to be a surprise. Like you don't find out until, and I was like, okay, can I set some like hard limits then? So I'm a sissy when it comes to spicy stuff. Like if it's above a pickle, it's too spicy for me. It's real stupid. I hate it. Like everybody else in my family, they're like, are you serious? So I was like, so don't make me eat hot stuff. Cause like it makes me sick. Like I don't enjoy that.
Good that you're setting boundaries on the front side.
Right. I was like it's not going to be funny if you order like the world's hottest chocolate, you know, like I like watching those videos of the guys like eat that and like drink a bunch of milk. But for me, it would just be like, I'm going to puke and nobody's gonna have a good time. It's gonna be fun. So I was like, so no spicy stuff.
Right.
And can we not do bugs, please? I really, really, really don't want, like, maybe we can ease into that later, but I don't want to start with like dried bugs.
Cockroach.
Yeah. I just like, I can't, I will, I don't like it. I don't want to do it. So she was like, okay. I was like, those are your only rules. Other than that, go. And so she gets on Amazon and orders some stuff. And then she's like, when are we going to do this? And she had my friend Jessica make the graphic, the Taste Bud Torture Tuesday graphic. And I was like, this isn't my project. This is yours. I'm just at your mercy. So whatever. And so she's like, all right. So she came over and then I got there and she had the gift bag set up with something in it. And I was like, I really don't want to do this. Like, this is, I'm so dreading like what is in that bag. And like her face, she was just like, oh, I just can't wait. Yeah. Like it was awful. Right. So I'm like, I have to like feel it first and like pull it out. And like, okay, it's not very heavy. And it was that pickle cotton candy. And it's, you know, so it's okay, look at it, smell it kind of weird. And then it tastes like the way that an old vacuum bag smells. I'm not kidding. Like that's how it tasted. It tasted like grandma's vacuum. Like you just went up and licked the, it was so awful. It was so bad. And so she posted it and we got a whole lot of interaction. And like one of my sisters was like, I look forward to this every week. Like it's so great, you know? And so she was like, see, they love it. It's a thing. Like you make the best faces. And I was like, you just like being mean to me. But okay. So it just took off and I've tried a whole lot. I've had people like bring me stuff. And I'm like, what about any of those videos made you believe that I like these things? Like,
why do you feel the need
I
to
appreciate the consideration. Yeah. Like, well, a friend of ours from a different group, there's wine. So one of them was like lollipop, like kind of like a Tootsie Pop. It was awful. It tastes like cough syrup. It was just straight up, just not a good time. And then the other one was peanut butter and jelly. And it wasn't bad, but it was, wine shouldn't taste like peanut butter. You know what I mean? Like, so, but it was kind of funny. And I was like, well, I mean, that's cool that like you saw those and you immediately thought of me because of those stupid videos and that stupid idea that Kaylee had. But I mean, it took off and it's a thing. And so. Well,
and to the point, the reason that I bring that up, I mean, because again, in the short amount of time that I could research what it is that you're doing, that was one of the things that I found, right? But then after what we just talked about needing the interaction and needing people to click on it and everything else, but it has virtually zero to do with anything that you're promoting, right? I think that's a missed value in a lot of businesses. The idea is you think, okay, if I put this picture of this rug up and I put this picture of this rug and you know, eventually these are going to, somebody's going to find one and it's going to be the next big thing or people are going to interact with it. But smart enough to step outside of the range of that, to put a few posts in here that really aren't relevant to any of this other stuff, just to garner the interaction with the post, so that when the next post goes out of here's a doormat for you, more people see it, right? And so again, I'm not the expert on social media marketing by any stretch of the means, but anytime that you can get people to interact with your post, like we said, liking, commenting, sharing, you know, tagging somebody, whatever that looks like, that is the ability to be able to then draw it further down the line as you continue to grow. Not your audience is already there. It's unfortunately just being censored as to how much of that audience is going to see your post. We found here giveaways. You want to talk about something, man, that will drive people to interact with the post is giveaways. But it quickly changed. So when we started, one of the first things we gave away a pair of Ultra Boost. You know, these are $200 shoes. You know, basically what we tell you was all you had to do was, I think it was tag 2 people or 3 people. You know, share it, comment. You know that you were done. Blah 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 blah. Right. And This literally, when we started our Facebook page, we literally doubled our people with one giveaway. You know,
I believe it.
And then you go back now and you try to do that, and you'll get a kickback from it that says you have violated something. You know, we don't allow this. So then, if you stay in touch with that, you'll see people that are posting online like, here's some workarounds to that. Instead of using these words, use these words, or
and
instead
then it's
of
okay.
This. Yeah, and so that you can still garner that, because listen, somebody said a very important thing on here. You ever watch The Social Dilemma? On Netflix? It's one of those things. You'll never want to use social media again if you look at it. But the statement was, if you're not paying for it, you're the product, right? And so that's really kind of where you're at. And if you look at it, you know, as a business, I need social media as an advertising realm to work with my business, right? But Facebook, Instagram, they ain't getting paid for that stuff.
Right.
So if there's a lot of traffic being driven to me and they can't monetize that, well, then we need to shut that off and figure out another way, because what we want you to do, we want you to promote your post.
Right.
And if you promote your post, then we get money for that. And so this is where networking and everything else becomes extremely valuable in small business entrepreneur world. People who do it really well, people who figure out an algorithm or a workaround and all that other stuff, and that gets shared. You know, if you got people in your network line that are really good at social media, it's really amazing when we talked about the amount of co-branding that you've done here to promote your business, that really there's a line of co-branding that happens even within that networking. I need someone who's really good at figuring out how to get this down to the people. In return, what can I do for them in order to maybe exchange that information, or exchange product for information or whatever, so that I can get that stuff. Listen, influencers, all of those other things, you know, I'm at that age of like, I'm not boomer yet, but I'm close enough. I'm close enough to understand. These are people that
so you're like, I get it now.
I know. It really is ridiculous, right? But then you look at it and you go, but these are people that have instant contacts to a lot of other people. And they have so much interaction on their side of Instagram or whatever that they can put something out, and it's going to way more than 3% of what is being socialized out, because they already had all of that interaction. So you'll find people that they partner their particular brand or they partner their particular product with an influencer that can push that down into the market to then try and get them to work all the way back around to like your page and start interacting over here. It sucks, you know, because I got to go deal with that 18-year-old that.
Well, and then it's also like, okay, are you like a legit one? Like, I see that you have followers, but that doesn't always convert to dollars. Did you pay for those? You know, like it's.
Listen, there were programs or apps out there that you could just turn around and like enter in some information and give it hashtags, right? You give this thing hashtags and you turn back around. Next thing you know, you got an extra 4,000 followers that are on there, but they're not real. Right. You know, like you worked a system to get them, and it gives people this linear look. Like if you go locally here and there's somebody that has 1 million followers, you should probably question that. I mean, especially in Bryan College Station. Right. But you know, it is also the idea as well that could be somebody's business. You know, like the same kind of deal. Like I've built these followers to sell that to you because you need me more than I need you. Right. And so networking with folks who have the ability to help you, I don't necessarily need a full blown understanding of Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat, TikTok, you know, all these other things.
Kaylee calls it, she was talking about TikTok and she was like, we need the clock app. And I was like, you are 80 years old. She's 26. The clock app. And she's like, I don't do that. I'm not hip. Yeah. And they just keep rolling. That's the other thing. As soon as one goes down, you got the other one coming up, and this is the popular one now.
I mean, if you're on Facebook, you're old. If you're on Instagram, you're kind of in between there. You know, if you're on TikTok, you're young. I mean, But all of these people are potential purchasers somewhere down the road of product that you have or services you're providing. So we've talked a lot about the Facebook page for the Women's Entrepreneur, and we've referred to it multiple times on here because you and I discussed it off air of being we. And so I think
that's what we call it. We BCS.
I was going to say, I wanted to retouch back on that because everybody's listening to this going, what's this we group she keeps talking about? So Women's Entrepreneur.
We, not weed.
Yeah,
Women
no
Entrepreneurs of Bryan College Station, but we say we BCS.
Yeah.
The we group.
And so that group, and we were talking off air that group has had influence on somebody that sat here at the table that was talking about like, I didn't have any support to start this business up. It came from that group, and that group was a big enough support mechanism for me to go ahead and launch my business. And so we talked about, in that podcast, we talked about people breathing life into something that hasn't come to life yet, right? And so it's really important in these networking skill sets that we can literally be a part of by just going, hey, can I join this group? You know, and knowing that there are people in there that, again, are probably a part of that same line of thought that happened for them when they started up. They found themselves in that same boat of not having a lot of support and then finding it somewhere else.
Right.
And then building back to that and going, I remember when I was where you were. And they become an incidental mentor to someone.
Being who you needed when you were younger.
Yeah, you know, and there's so many of those groups that are out there just in general, but here locally, that's one of those groups that has come up multiple times. There's one, you know, I was talking to you about, I like the idea of getting a woman entrepreneur in the chair across from me. You know, it's easy to assume that a new business going up is going to be male owned, right? I'm not trying to be a chauvinist here. I'm just saying that there's a big percentage of that happens. But there needs to be more support put into seeing females drive into the business world and bring in, it's just like anything else, man. Listen, I'm going to say something when I know my wife is going to listen to this part and she's going to take 100% credit. I'll dress myself.
Yeah.
If I dress myself, now I did dress myself today, but my wife will tell you that if it's left to me, we're going somewhere and I'm going to dress myself. You're going to get what you get, right? No. Like, I don't care about stripes and
but she like looks at you like that's what you're wearing.
Man, I don't care about stripes and polka dots and this color don't match with this.
It's a shirt and it's a bottom.
Yeah. I mean, I want to be comfortable. That's what I'm thinking about. Like, this is comfortable. You know,
he says that, but he's like in hard pants.
I am. Yeah. Yeah, they're not even.
I saw this post.
These are, hey, listen, these are kind of stretchy.
They're stretchy, but they're still jeans though. Like, have you seen the post that was like, okay, but after this is over, can we not go back to hard pants?
Yeah,
like everybody
pajama pants all the way. Listen, we've gone out here in the last week and I've had pajama pants on. Like during the snow, we had pajama pants on in the car.
There's snow on the ground, you get what you get. Yeah. And I feel like all the judgment just gets like, you can pocket that shit for later.
There's a picture somewhere of me building a snowman in my pajama pants with boots on.
Is it the one your neighbor saying you said, explain this?
No, fortunately he didn't see that. And he doesn't have any kids, so I don't think he was interested in going out there. And I was chunking snowballs at him anyway when he did try to step outside. But, you know, the women's touch in the business world becomes a critical place that needs to be in the recovery, right? Like when you talk, listen, I'm going to say some stuff. This is, I'm in.
Are you worried about offending somebody?
No, I'm in an unpopular line of what I'm getting ready to say. But let's just say if I had a guy sitting there talking about painting coconut mats, that'd probably be a little odd.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying. Yeah. But there's a need.
Right.
And there's a market and there's everything else. And so as a guy, we're probably not looking at that. We're probably not going, there's a need for this. You know, you need somebody who thinks a little bit more outside of the box. And I'm not trying to discredit males in the process here, but listen, female entrepreneurs go at things a little differently than a male entrepreneur is going to go at it.
I look at that as like, you know how most MLMs and people in MLMs are women.
Yeah.
And they catch a lot of shit for it. But the thing is that women are willing to try and to put themselves out there a lot more often than men typically are. Like doing something that's out of the norm or against the grain for that reason, because it's, well, I'm going to do what I have to do, what I can, where I am.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of a guy's like, oh, I'll go get a job.
Yeah. No, yeah, right? And I mean,
and I'm not knocking either one of them. I'm just saying, like, based on what I've seen, like, women are more likely to do this, whereas men are more likely to do this.
I think a woman is better able to shift creativity and thought process than a guy is. I mean, I'm just going to throw that out there. Right. I think we tend to
and there are exceptions to both.
There
like,
are.
I hate to blanket statement.
I'm generalizing. That's why I kind of breathed real heavy before I got into this comment.
I mean, you're not
here.
saying anything offensive. It's just like based on my limited experience with people I know, people on social media, this is what I have seen.
Right. You know, it is probably... there's pluses and minuses to both of these categories that we're talking about. In my world, when I deal with things facts, no emotion, you know, really just kind of put it on paper, plan it out, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
You know, I'm not saying that men do that and women don't, but in a certain
That's
line,
typically like a guy's way
I kind of am, right?
Yeah.
A woman is going to look at, you know, this is cute. This is something somebody's going to buy because it's cute.
Right.
You know, and I'm over, like, listen, I've already learned my lesson on this because, you know, in the shop, we started doing seasonal shirts. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to become a boutique. That's not our goal. Yeah. That's not who we are as a business. But we started making seasonal shirts, and then you start seeing, like, I can put this out on my own text line. There are 5 or 6 moms. They're all going to know who they are when they listen to this. There are 5 or 6 moms that are really in our group. I shoot a picture, give me an extra large, give me a medium, give me a small, give me the, you know, they want those shirts as they come in. And I'm not smart enough as a guy to figure out what they want, right? But the people who design my line for seasonal shirts are females. Now,
who can, like, this is going to be cute. They're going to like this. Yeah. This is trending.
Yeah. I'm over here like, listen, man, show me a cool football helmet shirt or something like that. That's what I want, you know? So again, we're leaving, you know, even in that case, sometimes we were leaving some potential customers on the table because we couldn't see far enough down the road past what's cool,
right,
as opposed to what's
not
cute.
Trying to reach that market.
Listen, you ask my wife, when's the last time I said the word, oh, that's cute? We've been married 25 years, man. My wife might drop dead of a heart attack, and I'm going to be a single dad, you know, widowed, trying to raise my daughter. I mean, but
that's cute.
But this is what we need. We need total recovery, but we need total networking within both sides. I like the fact that there's a women's entrepreneur page, and there's a place for that. There's a spot where that is going to grow. There's a spot where that's going to gather and continue to be reinforcing. It's going to be networked into people who need to start it. And I say people because, listen, if I wanted to know what I needed to do to insert into the women's population, I'm not going to a male group to ask that. And I should.
We have a couple of guy members. The big so there's the main group, and then there's like a paid members group, and there's perks to being a member. But the main group, you know, you just answer the questions, agree to follow the rules. You got to live in this area because it is, the group started out of a need for connection and networking, and friendship, not like I want to make a page where we can all sell and advertise to each other. Like, no self-promotion other than the initial introductory post is allowed, period. Because that's not what that place is for. We do masterminds. We meet up for lunch bunch. We meet up for happy hour. And COVID has changed some things, but like, you know, we've gotten back to doing that. And you're either comfortable to come or you're not comfortable with it. And either way, it's fine. We're going to an Aggie women's basketball game, and we're, you know, making signs and wearing our shirts. And it's a lot of fun, but it's surrounding yourself with like-minded people who will breathe life into your business or your ideas, and they will believe in you, and they won't lead you astray. You know,
well, you're creating a group of women of influence. Within their own group. But then that extends out past that group. So that leads us back into this last part, because I want to give a shout out to that group. That group, I think, is of great value, has a bunch of talented people that are in that group, a bunch of talented women, entrepreneurs, people that are pushing the envelope really on this recovery and everything else. But they're also a part of the group they're associated to other, you know, groups as well too. They're associated to the to the Small Business and Entrepreneur Group. They're associated to the Brazos Valley Recovery Group. I mean, they're parts
Lemonade
of all
Day.
of these.
We did a clothing drive.
Yep.
We don't, because a lot of it is like, okay, like we want to help build our community here. How can we give back to the community? You know, like we pick different things for philanthropy, and I could talk all day. Like there's just all these good things about it.
And so my point is if you're a woman that's looking to either start a business or you have a business, there are resources that are available.
Right.
If
or you think you have an idea, but you're not sure. Or, okay, I have an idea and I've got these pieces, but I don't know which order to put them in. Like, we'll help you.
Yeah. Well, and also there is, it's not common. I would hope it's not common. At least I don't think the way that I view it, it would be common. You go to some of these other groups and you put out there that, hey, I'm a female-owned business owner that owns this or whatever. Most of these other groups that we're talking about, you're going to get hey, welcome to the group. We're glad you're here, right? In some places, though, you're going to get okay. You know,
keep scrolling.
Yeah. Right. You know, and so the incorporation of these pages also become just an extension of the network group. Right. If I needed something that let's say my daughter decides at one point she's going to start her own business. Well, I'm not going to direct her to this male dominated group over here. I want to direct her to a group of people who've been there, done that, but are also fighting another battle of the idea of like, listen, man, just because we can do it as well too, as better as anybody else, if not better, you know, and our thought process is a little bit different maybe than this thought process over here. And we're going to look at this as striking on emotion and on a need in a particular gender category, as opposed to over here where they're just going beer. Let's sell beer. Let's start a beer place. You know, I mean,
or there's a hole in the market and we're going to fill it.
Yeah. So, I mean, and you have all of these people. I mean, Etsy groups and everything else. It doesn't mean there's not males in that Etsy group.
Right.
But it is a highly dominated female store line, right?
Yes.
And a lot of the stuff, I mean, if I'm a guy and somebody says, hey, go on to Etsy and find something, the first thing I'm going to think about is, I'm going to get something that's bedazzled or something like, I mean, like you just automatically assume that, not realizing that there is a huge avenue of, really probably 1 million stores that are on that line that's probably going to find a need and rise up to meet a need for virtually anything you're going to think about. Stuff you probably didn't even know existed.
Right. And then you're like, well, shit, there it is. That's what I got to have.
Well, it's like I said, before we sat down here at the table, I knew nothing about there being a business here in town that did customized mats for your doors. Nor did I know that business also offers it up as an event, right? Like where you can bring it to you, to a place. Maybe it's the girls' night out or whatever that is, or couples' night or whatever.
Or, hey, I'm going to have an office party for my employees.
Yeah. We want to do these things as a team building group, as a whatever.
I've had lots of those.
Yeah, I got a realtors group that sells houses. That it would be awesome if we had an avenue where we could create a custom mat for every individual that buys a home through us, and it's their name on that deal, where I don't have to go on to a site that is
and order it and then wait and hope that it gets here in time for my closing.
Yeah, and it's being ordered from China or from New Jersey or whatever. It's local, right? And so these are, and again, I had said the same comment to Dorothy with Twisted Tumblers. I'm like, listen, they don't know they need it until you put it in front of them. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, I've never seen this.
I gotta have that.
Yeah. I mean, it's going, man, this is something that hasn't crossed my line of sight until it's in my line of sight.
Right.
And so entrepreneurs try to do their best job of bringing that in and figuring like, this, it's like the mask, man. It didn't exist until it was a need.
It wasn't a need, and then all of a sudden,
then it's everywhere, you know. So, but it's also getting in and being the entrepreneur that strikes first in there, and then becomes the pioneer of that, who also then becomes the go-to. You know, I want to go to the business that was the first to do it, as opposed to the 18th that's figuring it out and going, I'm going to do what they're doing, and they're just a modified version of the original or whatever. But I want it to be local. Right. All right. So told you we were going to bring this up. This is the part. Yeah. This is the part where you're going to sit here and we'll see how this goes. But I told you in a part of my research of going through and looking at your business and trying to gather things in that I could talk to you about here, which is kind of funny because, I mean, we're going on hour and 42. I told you this goes by like super fast, right? Jeez. But, having fun. Yeah. I mean, it's the same deal. It's like, today, I think, what was it? Sonia Watt went out today for Knit Knot for lice, right? And somebody's like, how long can you really talk about lice? you'd be shocked. Same reason how long we could talk about coconut mats and everything else. So, but one of the things I want to talk about is something that you posted, and I think this becomes a part of, as an entrepreneur, when it's yours and it's your puppy and everything else. We talked about the corporate world early and how corporate world can create this sense of security that is a false sense of security. It can be yanked out from underneath you at any given point. In the entrepreneur world, when you're creating a business, it's you. There's not, president, CEO over here, and then vice president. There could be those, I guess, in that process. But, if you created it, you're probably the CEO
it's
of
you.
the deal.
You're all of the things.
Yeah. And so we were discussing off camera, some stuff that runs into the line of being an entrepreneur, especially if your business is struggling, or if it's not going the way that you thought it was going to go, or 2020 got its claws in you and is trying to rip apart your idea and show you that this was completely stupid for you to start and blah, 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 blah.
Like I said in the beginning.
Yeah, like all of these things working in on you. But you had a post that, and I don't even think at the time, I don't even know that we were connected on social media when I found this. So that just tells you, I try to dig pretty fast, pretty quick.
I was really surprised when you brought that up. I was like, how long did you scroll?
Yeah. I'm not trying to go back like 10 years on your Facebook or anything, but and when we sat down here and I said, I'd really like to discuss this if you're up for it. But it did catch you off guard that this was something that came into the wheel well that I wanted to discuss. And that was a post that you put up that basically, I don't want to undersell this by misquoting it, but you talked about depression, right? And not necessarily depression as a business owner. I think just depression in general. And so, we recently have had some things happening in the Brazos Valley where we've got businesses that are going under. You've got, people that are struggling to make ends meet because COVID has taken that part of their business away. And we talked about identity kind of being attached to those businesses and stuff like this. But I want to back that out a little bit and not just get the focus directly down on being a mental health issue that happens with entrepreneurs attached to their business, but more so just being able to back up away from that a little bit and talk about the transparency first of that. Because what happens is, we were saying before we got in here that social media is nothing but a highlight reel of all the good things that you want it to look like.
Or it's what you want your life to be portrayed as and perceived as to your audience.
People, I ain't talked to people on my Facebook page. There's a bunch of them I hadn't seen in face for 30 years, right? And so, but I want them to think that I'm happy,
I've
excited.
got it made and everything's great and I'm successful and my family's happy and my kids are awesome and all the things. It's bullshit.
No, it's again, like Sam and I had talked about, it's imposter syndrome. It's the I need people to believe this so that I can keep this mask up, right? And this mask is something that I'm a good wife, I'm a good mom, I'm a good business owner, I have a great life, I'm celebrating on the beach here in Mexico and all of this other stuff. And they create an image that is not real life, right? And I think that kind of came to you and crossed to you at that point that you just went, listen, I need to have a separate discussion away from all of this.
Right. So like it had been brought to my attention. So like I'm pretty transparent and honest anyway. That's just who I am as a person. Like I joking, like I'm all dressed up today because the last podcast I was on, I didn't know that they were going to be filming. It wasn't a big deal. I don't give a shit. Like he was like, we don't have to. And I was like, oh no, I'm just saying like, hey, my hair's greasy, whatever. Like I don't have makeup on. I didn't know we were filming. It's fine. Like people know that face and they know this face. And so today I walk out of my room from getting ready. My husband was like, you're dressed up. And I was like, well, I figured I looked like a troll for the last one. So now I can show them like the other end of the spectrum. Right. But I'm not the type that like I have to have makeup on to go check my mailbox. Like I used to give my mom shit about that because she's a cosmetologist so it was her job very much depends on looking put together.
Right.
But I didn't understand that because I was like, well, there's nothing wrong with you just the way that you are. Like you don't always have to be like dressed up or on. Like it's very much like a mask.
Yeah. On
and
all the time.
Right. Like I'm not like that. Like, I'll post pictures of me or have people like Kaylee will post pictures of me working where I'm not dressed up and I don't, I look like, when's the last time you slept through the night? Like it's been almost 3 years and thanks for asking, but like,
I'm glad it's apparent.
Right. But like, because I feel like that's a lot more relatable.
Yeah.
Because I know that most people, what they put up is the highlight reel. And I know that most of it, like some of it might be honest and that's cool, but it's bullshit.
Yeah.
Where's the other stuff in between? Where's the real life stuff? Like you don't always have perfect days and everybody's put together and the kids are great and their attitudes are awesome and everything's fine. No, that is not real life. I don't care who you are and how much money you have. That's not the way it is.
Yep.
So I try to be honest and transparent anyway. And then, so April and May, I was like stupid busy, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm in the We group and I'm surrounded by my friends that are in there. We're really cool. We're all, you know, banding together and kind of helping like lift each other's moods, you know, when things get bad, whatever, scary, unpredictable. Like last year sucked. Just sucked. But then I was offering to help a friend of mine and she was with me at my house and she was like, but you're so busy. And I kind of just looked at her and I said, what makes you think that? And she was like, well, you've been busy. Like, you've been crazy busy. I said, no, I was busy. I was in April and May. And since then, I haven't been making enough money to pay my bills every month. And, you know, just her face. And it dawned on me. I was like, so this is the perception. Like, this is why, because I'd heard that from other people. Like, oh, well, you're busy, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't wear that, like, as a badge.
Right.
You know? But every time, like, it kind of threw me. I was like, what the hell makes you think that I'm so busy? Like, I'm... okay, whatever, it's fine. Yeah. You know? And so then I was like, okay, well, I need to clarify for you. And apparently everybody else, like that's not, this year has been really awful for me financially and been really scary. And I know that I'm not the only one.
Right.
And then admitting out loud, you know, I've been depressed. Like that's what's been wrong with me. You know, like the feeling unmotivated and just not having any interest in anything and feeling like at any point during the day that I could cry, but I can't really pinpoint why. Yeah. You know, and I've dealt with depression before. I've dealt with like postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety and stuff. And it's, I feel like there's a whole different struggle, like for entrepreneurs. Like, what do we have like mental health wise, like resources? There's nothing, right? No. Like, a lot of us don't
go to the HR department.
Right. Like
hey,
a lot of
look
us
at myself in the mirror. I'm the HR department.
Cool. Yeah. We're going to figure this out.
That's
a lot of us don't have insurance.
Right.
Can't afford it. Mm-hmm. Right. And so there's a hole in the market for that. But there's a big need because of all of the challenges that come with being an entrepreneur. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. And a lot of other people wouldn't either. It's just a different set of challenges versus if you work for, because like I've been depressed working for someone else too.
Right.
It was different though, you know? So I went live in the We group talking about it because I told Amelia and Marie, I feel like it's really, really important to open up this conversation because I know just from talking to a couple of other people, I'm not the only one, but nobody feels comfortable talking about it.
Right.
It's
taboo.
Right. Yeah. But I said, I'll be the one. Like, I don't care. Like it's a whole different level of vulnerability, but I feel like it's going to be worth it because if it makes someone else decide to talk about their stuff so that they don't feel like they're drowning and they're alone or they don't do something that they can't change, right? You know, I'll do it. It's fine. And so I went live and I cried but I was really honest about, you know, I have been depressed and I have not been super crazy busy successful this year after April and May. It's tanked off and I know that I'm not the only one and I don't want you guys to feel like you're alone either. So this is me opening up the conversation, you know, like if you can relate, if you want to talk, we're here. Like you're not alone. Don't go through this by yourself, basically. So I did that and I had a lot of people reach out, but this was just on that page. And then I was like, okay, so I feel like now I need to be honest with my audience, right? Like my friends and family who are not in that group, who are not local, who I guess are under the same assumption, like, oh, well, you can't come visit because you're stupid busy. No, I can't come visit because I'm fucking depressed. Like and I don't want to get out of bed and I'm just I just want to quit everything. And so I wrote that post and I was really honest about, you know, like being a small business owner last year was really, really hard. And really scary and like rolling into the holiday season, trying to plan ahead for this year, thinking like based on how this holiday season looks, I might not be selling mats next year because people don't have the money that they used to spend. Yeah. You know, like I got to where I was doing events again. It was just waiting until things opened back up and people were comfortable. And then, you know, the rules kind of changed a little bit. Like, okay, I got supplies so that we're not having to like share everything and nobody's touching and like you can keep your mask on if you want, whatever, adapting. Yeah. But I know for sure that I can't repeat 2020 financially. Like I'll lose everything. Right. Can't do it. And so I was really honest about that and then kind of put out, you know, just a plea, not like a buy for me, but like it's so important to shop local. And it was for the holiday season. I was like, there are businesses like me who will never tell you the things that I'm telling you. But if you guys don't shop local, there are a lot of businesses like me who are not going to make it into next year.
Right.
And a lot of that was just, the depression, I guess. But it was interesting to me, like when I started talking about it, like I felt better, but then I had a lot of other people reach out and they were like, thank you for being so honest. Thank you for your transparency. Thank you for opening up the conversation. I have felt the way that you feel all year long and I've been terrified, but I haven't told anybody because I feel like I have to put on that mask and act like everything's fine.
Well, go try to find that group. Where is the Brazos Valley Depressed
Right. Like it doesn't exist, right?
Exactly.
So unless you put yourself out there and you say like, hey, me and my table is a safe place to have that conversation.
Right.
At. Nobody knows.
Well, and to that point, in the taboo that's behind it, still today, I mean, and we were talking about, female depression versus male depression before we came on air and everything else.
Well, because like guys, like, so I don't know if you're familiar with Brené Brown and her work, but she's, like shame and vulnerability researcher.
Yeah, some great books and great, I mean, she's got podcasts, she's got some great information.
But she talks about shame and breaks it down on like how that can color your life and change then. Like if I talk to people about like, think about your first experience with shame. Mm-hmm. They might have to sit and think about it for a second, but everybody can literally paint the picture for me of the first time that they experienced shame. But for men specifically, it's different because there's so much pressure and weight put on you because you're the man. Yeah. And not necessarily like your partner does it or your parents, but our culture, just our society. And it's, like, would your partner rather watch you die on your white horse instead of giving up or saying, hey, I can't do this anymore, I got to do something else? Even if you've never had that conversation, if you think like, oh, I have all this pressure, like I can't give up, I got to keep going, like that's horrible.
Yeah. Well, in the female world, when you say you're depressed, there's it's an unseen soft place for people to land, but they don't reveal it until it needs to be revealed, right? Then it's, hey, listen, man, I've been where you're at, come and talk.
It's going to be okay.
Yeah,
like, you get people checking in on you.
Yeah, in the male group, it's met with, don't be a puss, man. Just pull your panties up and let's get this thing done. Let's have a beer. Let's talk it out. That's so awful
because, like, well, you're a human and you have emotions and it has nothing to do with being a man or a woman.
Right. But society has kind of placed those.
Right. Suck it up and deal with it. Oh, why don't you just not be depressed?
Yeah, it's not a restriction, but it is definitely a social taboo that has been placed on the feet of men going, listen, your job is to provide. Your job is to be successful. Your job, and again, all these attached to the word job. Mm-hmm. Your job is to be the provider. Your job is to go out. You're
supposed to be strong.
Go out and do, right? Mm-hmm. Don't cry me a river over it. Just go do.
Right.
And figure it out.
Right.
Right. And that's kind of where it's met with in the vulnerability. And we've seen a lot of this vulnerability posted in some of these social media places. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily like, hey, man, I'm depressed about this. It's usually met with something like, my business is struggling, or we're not going to make it to this point, or I really need help, and this is what I need to see from my community. Mm-hmm. It's not tailored back to my business is failing and I am really depressed and this is failing.
It's crippled me.
Yeah. As the men that have put it up, you can go on there and look at it. The men who have put it up have taken from probably what is, their, what sometimes feels physical mental depression. Mm-hmm. And it is shifted over to the business, right?
And it's just very cut and dry. Like, here's the facts about my business, and here's what I need.
Because again, we talk about it as these businesses fold up. In an entrepreneur's world, it is the death of a dream, right? Like they have birthed this baby, they have raised this baby. This baby grew legs, it took off, it did what it was going to do, and now it is no longer.
Right.
And so it is the death of the dream. But people attach the identity to the dream. And then it becomes the death of what feels like you, because now who am I?
I've lost my identity.
Yeah, who am I without the business?
Right. My world is falling apart.
Right.
What do I do now?
Yeah.
What am I going to be known for?
And can I show my face around town to all of these people that have known me as Mr. This, Mr. That, Mrs. This, Mrs. That? That's all associated to my business. And so, in the world of what we put in, and when we're talking about, the highlight reel of social media, that doesn't feel good.
Right.
It doesn't feel good to have that come across your deal. But then when somebody kind of sees it, it's like I was saying, we're meeting for the first time today. But to me, there's a resonating feeling that goes along with that post, because I was kind of telling you my story behind all of that and everything else. There is a feeling of attachment that goes to that post. And then there's two immediate reactions. Listen, if I go on today and I post out listen, I'm depressed, I'm not feeling real good, I'm going to get two different responses from two different genders.
Yeah.
You think I'm wrong? Go look.
No,
Go back and look at your post.
I believe
and
you.
see how many men replied to it
Yeah.
and what they replied with versus how many women replied to it and what they replied
what
to.
their response was,
because
yeah.
listen, it's just like anything else. I got to be careful with my words here. As a man,
Crack me up.
don't listen, I'm going to use the word, but don't take this out of context. We are socially retarded when it comes to dealing with our emotions. In most cases, there are a lot of men.
You're stunted.
We are very much so.
You're stunted.
By society.
Correct.
Right. And even in some cases, our upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of me reaching back to a female, even though I've been where you're at, to reach back and do that in a way that is more soft and fuzzy and comforting is probably not going to happen, because it's just not in a wheel well for most guys to be able to do.
You just don't have that tool.
Right. And then again, but if it's two guys talking about it or whatever, it's man, come on, dude, this is going to pass. I mean,
You'll be all right. Figure it out.
You just a couple beers, you'll be all right. It's all good, And so the reason I wanted to bring it up on the podcast is because, listen, nobody wants an extension of 2020. Right. But I mean, there's stuff on the horizon here, and I'm definitely not going to get political, but there is stuff on the horizon here that is burning at the feet of small business entrepreneurs. What happens? I mean, today, and again, we're probably recording this way earlier than it'll be released. I mean, this may have already happened by the time we get this thing released. But there is talk today in the world of going to $15 minimum wage.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and so that happens, and then what? Everybody wants their part. Oh, man, it's been years since and it has. It's been 20 years probably since we were doing, but we're talking about.
But
we're talking about doubling, and we're talking about
hamster wheel though. You raise that, and then all the retail stores and the restaurants have to raise their prices to be able to afford to pay their employees.
Everything follows suit.
So then the cost of living goes up.
Yep.
So then you're back where you were. And I'm not saying that they don't deserve more money. I've been those employees
Sure.
of God, it'd be really nice if we made more money per hour, because as much as you want to knock those jobs, somebody's got to make your food. Somebody's got to flip your burger. Somebody's got to sell you shirts. Right. You know what I mean?
But gone are the days of dollar menus. Gone are the days of $5 boxes.
Because it just keeps going.
You can't. There is no economic way for a business to stay in business, to continue to run an operation, when you are taking their most controllable expense line, which is payroll. Listen, I've been doing this for a long time. As a Walmart store manager for 20 years, every month for 20 years, I had to break down a P&L.
Yeah.
And payroll is your most controllable expense. When you double that, and that's what we're talking about doing.
Cool.
You're talking about doubling.
I mean, at least here,
Yeah. I mean, so you double that number out, and now all of a sudden you're going to tell that business, listen, this was 70% of your expenses. Well, it's still going to be 70% of your expenses when you increase all the rest of your prices, because you're not going to go, this can't become 95% of my expenses.
Right. So what are you going to do? Well, I'll just raise my prices to make it up.
Prices are going up. Services are going up. People are going to do more with less bodies. You're going to create more unemployment, even though that's not supposed to be how this is supposed to work. And there's going to be people that are going to listen to this that go, listen, man, this is just big. This is the big corporate America trying to keep the little man down and everything. You're talking about paying a full-time starting person in flipping burger. Let's say you can get a full-time job at McDonald's making $15 an hour, $31,000 a year to flip a burger. Now, what is my college degree worth?
Right.
What do I tell the person that's working in my business who's been working here 15 years, and now I've closed the gap between starting rate and where they work to?
Right.
Do I sit there and say, okay, well, I've doubled out minimum wage, so I'm going to double out my worker's wage? You can't do that.
No.
And how do I make it fair?
And I'm not trying to tell that employee that I think that the girl who just started yesterday is worth what you're worth.
Yeah.
But I can only afford to pay you so much. So I'm really sorry.
This is what concerns me. And this is also leading in back to what we were talking about. As an entrepreneur, you're taking a risk going out and starting a business. Those that have been out there that have already been snake bit by COVID, you're now also facing with the next shift at the government level. You're facing this conversation. This is not real far off page from what we deal with locally about we should be focused on business, saving businesses, right?
Saving our local economy.
Listen, the tone deafness of government in general is the idea of going, listen, man, we're going to put more money in your pocket because we're going to give you another stimulus.
It's going to be fine.
Well, yeah, here's $1,400 more.
Okay,
Man,
cool. That covers
awesome.
my mortgage and my utility bill.
Yeah, so what that means is everybody that was really struggling, or you're at the low end line of the totem pole and you're making minimum wage and everything else, I'm your new best buddy because I'm going to put more money in your pocket that you didn't have before. But if I am the small business owner now and you now dictate to me that I'm going to have to go to $15 after a COVID year, I'm going to go to $15 an hour. Well, listen, I can't run my operation with the number of heads that I have going to that dollar amount without doing some things. Right. The very first thing is increasing my retails on all of the goods that I'm selling. It has to go up. Without a doubt, it has to go up. I don't care what you think. I don't care how economics works. You don't pay more money out here to make less money over here.
Right.
Everything moves. So your gallon of milk that's $4 a gallon now goes to $7 or $8 a gallon. And now all of a sudden, it's just like anything. Listen, I got for you entrepreneurs that are out here, this is a great statement. I want you to listen real closely to this. There's not very many things that I have like Yoda-like statements on.
This is one of them.
I used to tell people who would come into me when I was at Walmart and they wanted more money. My statement would be, if I paid you $1 million a year, would you be happy? And the instant response is, yes, absolutely. You pay me $1 million a year? I would love that. And I go, great. $1 million a year, we're closing. Hey, you made $1 million a year for about that much time, and I've closed the business. And now what is that million worth to you?
Right.
And what happens in general with people as you give raises is you start here. Think about when you first started and you were talking about all of those jobs that you had when you were a kid, right? You could only afford this that was up underneath here with the money that you're making.
Right.
So as cost of living increases, so does living the way that you like to live. The more money I make, the more things I buy.
Standard
The
of
more
living
things
comes up.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now all of a sudden we're going to go, let's say $7.25 is that minimum wage. And now we're going to go $15. Man, I can buy a whole lot of stuff in here. Hold on. All of this stuff that used to fit underneath here now doesn't fit underneath here. It fits way back up here.
So
what's the price of a car become?
Oh, insane, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right?
So, I mean, it's not going to double, but I mean, the average price of a car right now is $40,000. Average. Go back 10 years. 10 years ago, average price of a car is $30,000.
Right.
We're literally going up $1,000. And this isn't increasing payroll. This isn't going up from, $7.25 to $15. Every year, about $1,000 more on average is what that goes up to. Now, boost that up from $7.25 to $15 an hour, and what are you going to go to? I mean, you're talking about wrecking with a huge wrecking ball, coming through and wrecking small business.
Right.
Corporate world can probably absorb it, and listen, they're going to do the same thing.
But the small guys aren't going to be able
Listen, if you hate not getting your tax records back for checking yourself out at a Walmart on a self-check because you should be able to claim that since you were an employee of theirs doing your own checking out, what do you think's getting ready to happen? Go to $15 an hour, man. Listen, I'm cutting cashiers. I'm going to put more self-checks in there.
We're going to put self-checkouts in.
You are going to be really good as a customer at checking yourself out. I mean, it's got to go somewhere and it's got to come from somewhere.
Right. I've heard people have that argument for several years. Like all you're doing is you're forcing people out and they're going to have to figure out different ways to automate things so that they're not having to pay those bodies to be there.
Where's the money coming from that's supporting 15 is the question. And what that side thinks is that money's coming out of these business owners that are rich. Well, we know better.
But again, that's a perception. That's another thing that I talk to my friends about. And I'm like, I wish that there was a lot more honesty and transparency for what people actually make.
Sure.
Like, I know that that's a taboo thing to talk about.
It is.
And I don't have a problem asking somebody what they make. And I'll tell them, like, you can tell me to piss off if you want to.
Sure.
Like, I'm not asking you so that I can judge you or compare.
Yeah.
But based on what your field is, I have no clue what you actually make. And if we don't have this conversation, I guarantee you I'm going to estimate it to be way too high.
Yeah. But let's say that small business owner makes $200,000 a year running their business.
Right.
But now I got to pay out 15. Right. Am I going to continue to make 200? Well, hey, where's mine? Where's mine as a small business? When do I get to go to 300?
Do I get to give myself
when
a
do
raise?
I get to go to 300 or 350? Or as the small business owner, am I going, okay, I've got these people I'm responsible for, and I need to take a pay cut to get back to here. But I can't take enough of a pay cut to double my salaries out. That's not going to happen. So these are things that are on the horizon, and they're things as small businesses we have to be discussing, and you have to be proactive here. So running this back around the chute to the depression and everything else is you're going to be faced. We thought 2020 was the thing that did or didn't do in some of the small businesses. Some of the regulation that is coming down the chute here are going to be things that can be way more detrimental than any 2020 business is going to bring into.
Right.
So, but we have to stand together as network, as support, as resource, all of those things that we're going to need to navigate those waters, because those waters are going to look really murky for a lot of people. I watched a small business owner today post out, like, listen, I got 3 employees. I'm going to 1 if I have to pay $15 an hour.
Because I can't.
Yeah, but nobody gives a crap about that up at the upper level. They're just going, listen, man, people are going to make $15 an hour. Yay, us.
Right.
And they don't think about they don't think about the repercussions. You're talking about in that business alone, putting 66% of the people into the unemployment line. Right. So, and we're talking about doing this. This discussion is happening right now, which is absolutely insane. So, these lines of sight that you as a small business owner are staying out in front of and looking at, sometimes you really want your leadership, your local has more of an impact probably than anything else on small businesses here. You really want them carrying the torch of hope down that dark path that you don't know what it looks like, as opposed to somewhere down that path, there's a torch you can light. Watch out for the cliff, watch out for the animal, watch for all the things that are down there. But somewhere down there, I think you'll find it. Right. But there's going to be some pretty trees and bike trails along the way. Yeah. We're going to make sure that happens. And this is, as small business owners, this is where it comes to pass. We, as small business owners, are busy as it is, right? It's like I was talking about the other person earlier, where I'm like, there ain't no other time in this person's day to do anything.
You do this,
else.
and then you do this, and then you do this, and then you got to sleep somewhere for a little bit, and then you get up and do it again.
Yeah, but again, where is, listen, if you put $15 on a ballot, should we go to $15? Nowadays, man, I don't know what we get. I really don't, because there is this generational change that is happening that again looks at Boomer over here that says, we can do this. You're just too old to figure it out. Maybe, I hope I'm wrong. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to create a bunch more depressed business owners in our society
who have to close up shop.
And don't want to have discussions. Don't want to reach out for resource because of the social stigmas that are attached to that word.
Just act like everything's fine.
Yeah. But that social stigma attached to that word it just portrays itself and manifests itself in other areas. So it is the post of, I need people to help me because I'm going to close my business. Right? You can't go to bed every single night knowing what that balance is in that account and knowing that it's not increasing at a rate for you to stay solvent and not be depressed. Right. And not sit there and magically, let me generate my own hope with these 2 sticks. And see if
you're going
it comes together.
You're going to be a ball of anxiety, and and then it snowballs and gets worse and worse. And it's, the worst case scenario, what's going to happen. And then if your identity is wrapped around it, it's a huge part of who you are and it's what you're known for, like all of it. And then thinking about all of that falling apart, I can't imagine like feeling that way and then also not having anybody or anywhere to be able to talk about it. Yeah. It like, that makes me sad for male,
the isolation,
male business owners, because like, I can only imagine how hard it is. Like, even if you are just like in the darkest pit of despair, but you're like, can't fucking tell anybody. Yeah.
The isolation that happens in that world is pretty unbelievable, and it's self-generated. Right. It really is. Because when you're posting that out prior to making this a public statement. You're posting that out where let's go back 24 hours before that post, and you're like, nobody understands.
No, like I felt I had isolated myself.
Yep.
And it was easy to do because of COVID, like, oh, I'm just not comfortable, whatever, but like, I don't want to get out of bed.
Yep.
I'm very weepy. Yep. I feel unmotivated. I feel like, what's the point?
Yeah. Turn on a TV, it's all positive, right?
Right. Right.
I mean,
right.
Everything that's coming at you is met with some kind of negative. Mm-hmm. And the only place that you see any positive is in a Facebook post that is fake, mm-hmm. or that is the highlight reel.
Right. Or the things that people aren't talking about that I noticed, like, we're just not talking about this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, it went from, 1 year back, and you go back and you look at those friends' posts, and they're on vacation here and they're doing all these other things. And all of a sudden those vacation posts disappear.
Right.
And the car kind of changed. Like, didn't y'all used to have this car? That kind of changed a little bit, and we've moved.
Right.
But your assumption is, you moved for the business, or
because you don't talk about it.
Yeah. Right. No, it's met with, we're moving to a new neighborhood over here, but it's not, we're moving to a new neighborhood because we need to downsize because
we're trying to
our house, we're trying to stop the bleed or whatever, so it's valuable that as small business owners that we're transparent. Mm-hmm. That if you need the help, there are people there that can be good resources. And we're not talking about resources that they're going to charge you money for. We're talking about resources of, I've been there, done that. When we were having the discussion and you were I brought it up, you started talking about it, and I told you my story. Mm-hmm. The funny part of that is that story is not a part, it doesn't embarrass me by any stretch of the means, but it's not on my calling card. I mean, it's not going to be there in the business. I mean, I don't put on there, say, previous depressed co-owner.
Formerly depressed Walmart manager. Right.
It just doesn't work that way.
It's just one of those things. Like, I think it's really cool that you were comfortable to share that story with me and talk about it. Hey, I've been there before. And then, talking about, you're like, I was making the most money I've ever made, and I was miserable.
Yeah, worst time of my life.
And then, but also feeling
that's what I wanted. That's the part. I mean, that was what I was pushing for. Like, I need to run this.
I got there.
Yeah.
And
then when I get there, I'm going to go to the next one. But then I start getting there going, holy crap. Like, if I am struggling right here in this moment.
Can't imagine trying to climb that mountain.
Yeah, I can't go any further.
Worse.
Yeah, because it's going to continue. The pressure will continue to climb with that as well, too. And there are some people that can detach themselves from that. But those are also a lot of people who can also say that I was previously married. Okay? So, I mean, these are people that you're going to pay a price somewhere.
Right.
You pay the price by not prioritizing, and it's going to be somewhere. Listen, man, I am grateful and fortunate that I'm going to celebrate 25 years. I'm grateful and fortunate in that. I have a wife that is my rock. I tell people all the time, she's my better 2/3. I'm going to give her way more credit than half. But the reality of that is I don't land that partner. I have somebody else that doesn't understand that, and they ain't putting up with that crap. Then I can tell the story about how I was divorced. Right. I can tell the story about how my daughter is spending every other weekend with me.
Right.
And so you got to prioritize what you want. At the end of the day, Dallas and I were talking about it. At the end of the day, when they put you in the box and put you in the ground, what is your eulogy going to be?
Right. What do you want to be known for?
Yeah, man. I mean,
he worked a lot.
Listen, I'll give you something. I'll stretch one more step further that doesn't have anything to do with owning a business. Back when I first left home, and I had a girlfriend, and things were not going well, and we end up breaking up, and I am nowhere close to where I grew up. I don't have a lot of friends around. I don't have any of this stuff. I'm not real sure why I'm here. I am working for Walmart at that time. I'm not a manager or any of that stuff. I'm still an hourly employee, but I can remember there was a night there, like, man, my life has not turned out the way that I envisioned this, right? And it's a dark night. I am not in a good place mentally, and I have a gun in my mouth. And I pull the trigger, and it clicks. Didn't go off. Clicks. And in that moment, there was a flash that happened that it was a vision that came across, and it was a vision of my mom standing over my casket. And this had never crossed my mind before at any given point. The only thing that I knew was that I was hurting and I wanted it to stop.
Yeah.
I didn't care about anything else. I just wanted it to stop. And it hurt enough that I know these are all voices going, nobody understands, nobody gets it, you're a failure, blah. I mean, just dark voices from all over places, nobody will ever love you. I mean, just... And I knew I had support back at home, but that support wasn't enough. That thought of that support wasn't enough because I knew I was going to have to go back with my tail tucked between my legs to tell them that I'd failed. And this wasn't the plan. It wasn't the plan, right? Here's that plan again for those males out there in this dominated society of planning. And the one thing that I had not thought about, and the vision came over at the time that I clicked the trigger, was that my mom was standing over my casket and I'd not told her any of this, right? And I thought to myself, if I at least get this done, all this will stop and I won't have to worry about the pain anymore. What I did not see was this vision of my mom, every interaction from that point forward in her life, with the question, if somebody of that age is, do you have any children? And she will relive that moment for the rest of her life. I used to. And that moment, I mean, it was boom, just like that. Just like that. And I'm like, what are you doing? This is crazy. That's really But that voice didn't penetrate anywhere in there before that trigger.
Right. It's at the point where you're like, it's too late.
It needed that moment. And for some people, they ain't that lucky.
Right.
That trigger goes off, that bullet goes through.
Your gun works right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, and I didn't tell my story to my mom for a very long time, but I did tell her that story.
What did she say?
I was just scared out of her mind. She was like, why didn't you call me? What are you going to tell me, Mom? You're 300 miles away. What are you going to tell me? Come home? That's the whole part of the failure. If I come home,
that was part of it, that I have to admit defeat and come home.
Yes. And then, but that moment also for me was clarity into who are you? Are you the relationship? That was the question that I had to break away from, because I'd made myself the relationship.
Right.
Just like you have business owners that make themselves the business.
Right.
And then when you step away from that, now that I look at, dude, listen, I am one of those guys, I'm not going to brag, but I am one of those guys that what you see on Facebook is what you get. I am the highlight reel, but my life really is a very good highlight reel. And I love where it's at, but it could have not been.
Right.
And it could have been completely gone. And if, listen, if I could have had a crystal ball to look 25 years down the road from that moment, it was really longer than that, more like 27 years. But if I could look down the road to see where I was at today and that relationship ends, dude, I've been like, peace.
It's fine. I'm fine. Right.
Yeah, let's get this going, because you are postponing what needs to come to me.
You are wasting my time.
And what it is listen, I told you I'm not a Bible thumper, but it is God intervening in that moment to go, there's way more for you than right 100%.
Here. Like, hey, buddy, you're not done.
This is a speed bump, and it's going to be this small of an incident. And you know how many times I think about that? Virtually none. But the one thing that I want everybody to hear when we talk about depression and everything else is the idea that your story is somebody else's moment. And your recovery, your slingshot effect back, to like, I can look back on that and completely understand being in that moment and completely understand the whys and completely understand the voices and the drown out. And oh man, I can see all of that and hear it like it was yesterday. But that is hope. To somebody else who doesn't see the light, doesn't see the vision, doesn't see the future, doesn't see an hour ahead, a day ahead, a week ahead, a month ahead, a year. They don't see that there's anything there for them. It's just darkness at anything that they look at in the future. Needs that light of hope, needs that person with the torch carrying it down in front of them. Needs somebody there guiding the way to go, listen, man, in 10 years, you're going to look back on this and laugh.
And it's just going to be a blip on the radar.
Dude, you're going to sit there and go, that was stupid.
Yep.
You know, but there are a lot of people who will never get to tell that 10-year story.
Right.
There are a lot of people who will react in that moment because of hopelessness.
Right.
Because of lack of resource, because of lack of somebody being plugged in, just needing to plug in. You know, and so when you see highlight reels and everything else, we don't feel like we need to plug into those guys because, hey, well, life looks pretty good. You got pretty much everything you need.
Everything appears fine and normal.
Yeah.
Like you're not acting like you're sad. You're not acting
How many times
like
in a suicide have you ever heard that statement? I thought everything was okay.
Oh, so whenever I was in college, I lost my really close friend. I closed with him the night before. Like I was the only female that hung out with him consistently. Mm-hmm. Didn't have a clue that anything was wrong.
Yep.
His roommates didn't have a clue that anything was wrong.
Want to see some of the best actors in the world? Go find somebody that's depressed and suicidal. Mm-hmm. They'll make you believe that everything's great.
Yeah. Like we closed, we had music on. He was dancing. He was acting like his normal self. We were fine. I said, all right, I'll see you tomorrow. And then he didn't show up for work. And I drove around town looking for him because like he would stay up all night, like kind of like manic and study and then fall asleep in places. So I went and looked and I couldn't find his truck. And then his parents called work the next day and let us know what had happened. Yeah. And he was in the hospital. He was on the life support.
Yeah.
You know, didn't make it, but it was just that's what we all said. We were like, we didn't know anything was wrong, and I felt like I had failed him as a friend because I should have been able to tell.
Yeah.
I spent more time with him.
The guilt that follows. I mean, again, you were talking about.
I knew what he wanted me to know.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, the guilt that follows is the idea of, was I not plugged in enough? Did I not
pay attention? Was I too self-absorbed? How did I miss it?
Yeah. Yeah. Same deal. I mean, and again, those were thoughts after the process with my mom of just going like, you know, how do you not know your own son is feeling this? You know, especially when it's her and I the whole time growing up, you know? So, that all being said, I hate to tag this onto the end of your business.
No, it's fine. Well, it relates to something that I'm doing now. So again, pivot. So I've been on Etsy since 2011. I think I started in 2011. Some of the girls in the We Group have Etsy shops. And so like initially when I joined, you know, like I gave my intro, whatever, and said, and they reached out. We're friends now, but you know, like I helped them. And I've helped other people, like giving them business advice, whatever. Cause like, I think that my own ideas for my business are shit, but I'm really good at like, if other people have ideas being like, okay, yeah, like, yes, this is, I feel like,
are you somebody else's Jessica?
Yes. I'm that for everybody else. Yeah. And it's like ridiculous. And then, or like, if they feel like I'm just starting out or I'm scaling up, but like, here's all the pieces and I don't know which order to put them in. So I'll help them. So I do like business consulting,
right? But
I hate to just say that because it's not just business consulting, because I feel like if I just lay out the business steps that you need to take and I give them to you, and we don't talk about your mindset, and we don't talk about how you feel, we don't talk about how different events in your life have colored who you are now and the fears that you have, or the fact that you are stuck on perfectionism and you stand in your own way. If we don't talk about any of that shit and I just give you these steps and then I follow up with you in a week and you haven't done anything, we're both going to be frustrated.
Right.
But I failed you.
Yeah.
I didn't talk about the things that up to this point have been holding you back to help you get through them so that you can take these first steps that you know you need to take.
Right.
So a lot of it is like unofficial therapy. You know, I have that face. I'm that person. Like people just talk to me and it's cool. I listen. You have my undivided attention. And I think that's a lot of it. Is like, it's hard to find people who actually listen.
They plug in.
Give a shit, right?
Yeah.
So I'll listen to them and I'm not necessarily trying to fix it.
Yeah.
I'm just listening. And like, that sounds really hard. Like, it's really hard for me to judge somebody. It's just one of my things. Like, if it doesn't affect anybody else's life, nobody else's opinion.
You don't walk in the shoes. You don't know the story.
You don't know. Right. Yeah. And so I'll listen and try and relate. And then it's funny, like watching this weight lift off their shoulders because they were just able to talk about it. They felt like this is a safe space. I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to tell anybody. Yeah. But then they feel better. And then they're kind of like talking through how they feel, or they're talking through their fears. And then we talk about, okay, well, why are you afraid? And then we, like, my favorite game to play is worst case scenario. And I started doing that with myself when I was going through postpartum anxiety real bad.
Right.
Because I would know, like, these crazy thoughts that I was having, like the fan's not going to fall on the baby.
Right.
But it could.
Yeah.
You know, and like start to get worked up. But like, I know that thought is not rational. I know that it's not. Okay, cool. So, and then any other time anything has happened, like worst case scenario, well, what happens if we don't make enough money for 3 months to make the car payments?
Yeah.
Well, they're going to come get the cars. Is anybody going to die? No.
Yeah.
Are we going to be okay? Will we be able to go get another car? Yeah. So is it really that bad?
Yeah.
So I'll do that with them because they have these scenarios that haven't even happened that they've like built up into their mind. That's this big thing. The monsters, right? The gremlins. Yep. And so it's talking them down off of that and then getting them to realize like, it's not that bad or it's not going to be that bad. That shit hasn't even happened and it may not happen. Yep. Or you're afraid of disappointing people. You're afraid of failing. Well, why? What happened in your life? Well, one time and usually stuff like that relates to a shame experience in their life.
Yeah, something that happened early on.
Right, like I disappointed my mom and the look that was on her face, I never want to see that look ever again. Yeah. Stuff like that, you know? And so we talk about it and we talk about, okay, cool. Well, that's preventable. So let's do this. So that I tie that into, so it's like mindset coaching. I don't know what to call it. You know, like it's business and mindset coaching and consulting.
Well, the term that I've put on this is mentoring. I mean, you really are a sounding board for people and a guidance to them in a spot that they probably don't know what to do, or maybe they're just frozen. Maybe they're panicked. They're frozen with the fear of, I can make a decision here, but if it's the wrong decision, what if, right? The monster. Right. And so mentoring, and especially people who've been in the business for a long time, people who, you know, I can tell you this, if you want to know about hiring people, who the right people, who the wrong people are, all that other kind of stuff, listen, man, I've done it for 35 years. I can give you scenarios. I mean, you think if you staff Walmarts for 20 years, you've seen
meet all
everything, seen everything, right? But that knowledge is important to somebody who is bringing people into their business that they're going to represent. The person I'm mentoring was the person you put at the front counter when they walk in the door. Is this who you want representing you as the business owner? Well, no, that's not. Then why are you putting them at the front door? Right. What about this? If I could offer up this person to you, I mean, people have an idea of who they want, but then they don't. You know, when they sit down, it can be both ways. It can be like, I just wanted to get this done, so this is off my plate, and they hire poorly. My statement to that is, when you need people really bad, you'll hire really bad people. To the other side of the equation of you're looking for the magical unicorn that just doesn't pop off. Somebody else already has that person. Right. Why are they in the market? Right. If they're the next best thing since sliced bread, why are they in the market? Right. Because somebody should have snatched them up already. Somebody's going to have them. Yeah. Right. So a lot of the times you got to build those people as well too, but you've got to see it in people. Right. And so when you mentor somebody and you can walk them through that, you can say, listen, you probably won't find, you know, Sally Joe customer service queen that can, you know, do wonders for your business. You're probably going to find Betty Sue over there that you're going to have to work with, teach, train, expect, you know, all of those things. So, but you can build the next best thing. Like I told somebody earlier, you know, everybody's an expert, but at some point they weren't. Yeah. You know, so if they're the best at what it is they did, I promise you at one point they weren't. Right. And at one point they started. Everybody starts. Everybody's at the beginning. I say that when people are like, specifically like if their business is product based, not service based. Yep. The first thing that you make, whatever it is, the first of anything that you make is shit. Yeah. Because it's the first one. Yeah, it's the baseline. Right? It's the prototype. Yep. Like, and my friends give me a hard time. I say give me a hard, it's a compliment. It's the way but they'll say, is there anything that you can't do? Is there anything that you can't make? And but I say, I'm like I can look at the first whatever I made and go, oh God, like, can I take that picture down? You know, but it's cool to look at it and see like, that's where I started and look at evolution. How far I came because I didn't quit, because I kept practicing and got better. Yep. Right. And that's how everybody is. Yeah, you find better ways, more efficient ways, ways that, you know, again, aren't going to be right at the forefront when you're doing it. Right. But again, it was that everybody starts as a beginner. Yeah. It's something. But if you mentor people through this process, even if you're not doing great right now, you're mentoring somebody who doesn't know, and you can share that knowledge. Well, that's more so when I talked about getting put in a coffin and put in the ground. What do you want to be known for? Right. I want to be known for that. I want to be known for helping people. Yeah. Like I want to get to the end of my road, and I don't want to look back and go, man, I had all these gifts and I wasted them. Yeah. The legacy that you're building.
I used my gifts to the best of my ability to help others.
Yeah.
I want to leave other people better than how I found them.
Absolutely.
You know,
who knew we were going to get off into this?
I know, right?
I told you this thing can go sideways at any given moment. All right, so let's bring this thing back around here. So your business right now, what we really want to focus back on is let's go back to Atlas Belle Studio, because your hope is obviously 2021 definitely doesn't suck like 2020, and we want to start bringing that back around. But I think, again, people listening to this today, hopefully there are people that pick up, listen to this podcast or watch this video or whatever and look at it and go, I did not know this was a thing, just like I told you before I sat down here. And then that's somebody, as these things start becoming things that we can start doing again and doing regularly, or things that maybe we didn't even think we could do that we can, and bring it into our own homes and do. These are things that people are going to find as potentially like mass, the next big thing, right? So let's talk about reaching back to you. If anybody's looking to reach back to you, obviously you have your Etsy shop, right? So you can go to, it's etsy.com/shops/shop, sorry. Single shop. Okay. And then /
Atlas Belle Studio.
Right. I want to make sure.
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. It's just at Atlas Belle Studio. All of that is singular.
Right. Phone number? I write down phone numbers and people kind of look at me like, I don't know if that's right.
I've had local people, and of course I'm like, how the hell did you find my phone number? Then I'm like, it's probably on Google, dum-dum. It's 979-676-0676.
That's what I wrote down.
I picked that phone number out whenever I was working at PacSun. There was a little AT&T kiosk like right in front of it, and he like gave me 4 to choose from, and I was like, man, that's like stupid easy to remember. I want that one.
Yeah, give me 6 and 7. I do that all day long. So yeah, that is what I have written down, but it does make me nervous. The last couple of podcasts I've done is, so they can reach you here, and they're like, yeah.
I mean, if I didn't have it like online or social media, I'd be like, oh, here's my business number. But no, I mean, it's fine. It's if I don't recognize it, I'm probably not going to answer anyway. So just text me or just message me on Facebook or Instagram.
Listen, so booking parties, let's start back at the simple stuff. If you just need something that's customized, gift for yourself, for your home, whatever, definitely a vein that you really kind of started in, right? But parties, team buildings, girls' night out, all that kind of stuff. I've done
bachelor parties, baby showers.
I mean, because even in your world, they can be reaching back to you, go, hey, Brittany, I really want to do this, but I want to do it at like a restaurant maybe that serves some drinks and stuff.
So like I say semester because of the college. I'm like fall semester. So in the fall, I regularly did events at Ronin in downtown Bryan, and the goal was to help bring in traffic because they were hurting. So I did events there like on Thursdays and Sundays. I've done a couple at Wildflower at the Meadery, and those were a lot of fun. If you haven't been out there, it's gorgeous, just like Ronin is. I've done them at Liss's and Caldwell for the same, just different events. We'll come and it's public, it's open to the public. I'll post it on my page. I make the business co-host so that it shows up, like if you follow them, but you don't follow me, you go and you buy a ticket, and for those, I don't do custom designs. I'll bring a whole bunch of my stencils and like seasonally appropriate ones, and you just pick one. You okay? Yeah. I'll pick one, or you pick one while you're there, and we paint, and it's a really, really good time. I had one of the GMs of one of the Double Daves in town actually reach out to me yesterday about doing regular events there. Awesome. She was like, I've seen that you've done this. I've never done anything like this. I have no idea. So I kind of broke down for her, like, this is typically how it goes.
And even allow somebody to challenge you, reach back to you and say, hey, listen, I don't know where I want to have this thing at, but here's kind of what I'd like to do.
I've had people do that too. Like, so they want to do it like for their group of friends. And so then I'm like, are you guys okay with doing it at a local restaurant? So then it's like I know Ronin has room for us. I know Urban Table has room for us. Places like anywhere else that I have connections. Like, I'm really good friends with the general manager of On the Border. I watch her daughter. Her daughter is 3.5, and I've had her since she was 8 weeks old. She's one of your incidentals. Yes, she is. But I mean, they've become like family to us. They're going to have another they had a son, they lost him. They're having another little boy in April. And so that's the only kid that we watch. But like she has said, like, if you ever want to have events here, let me know. Cause like sometimes people are like, oh, I want to have one, but I don't have the room, to set it. And it's not like we need a ton of room, but even like a room this big, like they don't have like a kitchen / living room where we could set up tables and paint. And so then it's okay, cool. I've got a couple of different options if you guys are okay with this.
Right.
So I'll figure it out. Like everything is figured out.
And then if you want to do it in the comfort of your own home, obviously that's super easy.
We make it work. Like I've never been to one that I'm like, oh man, that was bust. Like at the end of it, I'll joke and I'm like, well, that was a crappy way to spend a Saturday night, huh? And they're laughing. They're like, no, this was so wonderful. It was so much fun. And I always book parties off of parties. Cause it's like someone who's heard of me or they've been to an event, books one and then all their friends come and they're the same as you. They're like, I didn't know that this was a thing.
Well, and again, you're creating the experience.
Right. I'm the product at the parties. Like it's a lot of fun.
The doormat is just an incidental. It's what happens there, but you're creating the experience. So, and the experience can be created in a lot of different environments, and you can guide people through that process as well too, whether they want to do it at their house, birthday party, anniversary, couples nights, all those things can all be a part of what you can create for folks in that. So, and if you really, you got some great product that's out there that people need to go and take a look at, and they can go again to your Facebook page. You've got Instagram page. What else are you on? Are you on TikTok?
No, I'm not a TikToker. My kids know. Okay. Well, I have a Snapchat, but I don't. Yeah, okay. I don't. And I'm like, I don't know how to use any of this so like a lot of my stuff is on Pinterest, and it's really cool. Some people will be like, I saw one of your mats on Pinterest, and it wasn't pinned by you. Like it was, it was pinned or like shared and multiple times. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, something that's a little out of the normal. And so if you're trying to create something that's a little bit out of the normal that you just don't get to see, this is definitely an event process that they can reach back to you on. You can help facilitate that for them and their friends, them and their family, whatever that looks like in your own house if you don't want to venture out into any of those areas. But maybe you want to make it an all-in-one deal. I think about, man, if I could go somewhere, eat, drink.
Right, like if you could come to Double Dave's and paint a doormat and you're having pizza and you can have a beer or whatever.
Yep.
Why not, right?
Yeah, I don't know that it gets much better.
I like that. I like the restaurant ones. It's a lot of fun because and it's also like, especially like with Ronan, a lot of the people that came had never been to Ronan before.
Sure.
And so I was like, well, everything is great. Like, here's what I've had. This is my absolute favorite. Their drinks are really, really cool too. They've got a whole bunch of different drinks, and so that was a lot of fun.
And if I'm a restaurant owner and I'm sitting out there, especially because there's a lot of small restaurant owners in our group as well. And if I'm sitting out there and I keep kind of harping back on Dorothy at Twisted Tumblers. She said, if y'all want to come in and serve food while I got a class going on, and boom, 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 here's all these people that are doing that. If you're sitting there saying, hey, look, Mr. Restaurant Owner, I want to bring 10 people in, that's going to be 10 sales for you. That's probably going to be more alcohol sales maybe even than food sales if we sit around there long enough working and jabbing and everything
we get
else.
Through and there's like a bunch of bottles of wine and stuff.
Just bring another one,
But that's the goal. It's like, how much business am I bringing you? Thank you for allowing me and my customers a space to do this.
You're done. You fist bump out with that restaurant owner.
We win. Okay, cool. So next month, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's how it works out.
Exactly. I love it. So
it's a lot of fun.
So I appreciate you coming in today, spending time with us, girl. We are
I know it's running
I think
long.
You beat Dallas. I think you did. 240 is what I got on the clock there. So, and again, people are going to look at this and go, what in the world could y'all talk about for 240?
Coconut doormats is what we talked about the whole time. It's a lot of fun. So this year it's looking a little bit different than last year as far, obviously, like I'm not going to have the mask spike that I did last year. I have shifted my focus to focus more on being a mentor, doing consulting and helping because there's such a need for it. Like we've done masterminds a couple of times in the We group, and last March, I instigated doing it like emergency online masterminds because I was able to pivot, but I saw that other businesses weren't.
Yep.
And so it was, okay, well, my brain works pretty good most of the time. I have all these business ideas. Like I understand marketing. I understand social media. How can I help you? Basically, like, because I don't want you guys to struggle and I don't want you guys to go under. And so we did that and I really, really enjoyed it. And so it's okay. How do I do more of that? Like, how do I help all these other business owners? The lady that you said you talked to yesterday, like I've taken over their social media because she was like, I don't have time. I can't do this, whatever, And I was like, cool, I can. Let me do it.
Absolutely.
Let me help you because you guys are struggling. And it's a lot of fun talking to people, hearing their stories, finding out why they tick. And then helping them realize like these hurdles that you've made in your mind that are super, super tall are actually only like this tall. That's really, really cool. Like another, one of my friends / she's kind of a client now. She started this week and she said like in the middle of the week, she was just ready to write the whole thing off and it was awful. And she was very scattered and she felt flustered and all these things. And so we went and sat and had lunch and talked for 2.5 hours and we both took notes and we wrote down, okay. And I was like, okay, well, so based on what you're telling me, this is what you need to do to set your day up for success. success. This is where you thrive, and you're not doing it.
Yeah.
So let's try that. And then yesterday she fucking killed it.
Yeah.
She killed the day.
Yep.
And she's done it today too. And it literally was just her mind dumping and venting, right? But talking about it, and like, you're not alone in the ways that you feel. All of that is relatable. I've been there before too. Let's do this and this. Let's move a couple things around and see what happens.
Yep.
And that's really, really cool. So I'm focusing on that. I'm still doing doormats. I'm still doing shirts. I'm still making all the things.
The true heart of an entrepreneur.
It's okay, cool. Yeah, and it's such a struggle, like being a polymath or a multi-potentialite. Like, you get pretty decent at something and then it's boring because it's not a challenge anymore. Yep. So then I got to go do something else. It's fun. Like, I still have a good time with it, and I'll get like custom designs. And what's funny is, like, people will message me and be like, okay, so I don't want to offend you, but is there any way that you could put this on a mat? And I'm like, you bet your ass I could. Yeah. You know, like, you're at the right place. Did you see anything else in my shop? You know, but because I guess some people, they would ask, be like, oh no, I can't. Like, this one girl, she messaged me, she's local. One of her friends had gotten an apartment, and long before that, they had already decided what they were going to name it. And it was Slut Pad. And she was like, I understand if you don't want to make it. And I was like, I would be honored to make it. Because she was like, I promise it's not like demeaning, like it's funny. Like, we're all in on it, and it's funny and it's a joke. But again, it's that, like, I'm going to attract certain people and I'm going to repel certain people. And like, if you're clutching your imaginary pearls, my shop is not for you.
Yeah. This is who my customer is right here.
But
my
again, that's
animal.
like, I'm being true to me and who I am. And I appreciate all things funny and tongue in cheek. And so.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for coming in today. I appreciate your time.
Me.
Again, Brittany Lambert, if you need anything, this is your girl, because you got so much stuff running around in your head. I'm sure you can make it all produce.
Pretty much.
So give her an opportunity to take care of you, your family, your friends. Again, if you're looking for doing something just outside of the realm of the norm, she's going to be able to deliver that potentially to your front door.
Pretty much.
Right there. So I appreciate you coming in today, spending time with us. Good luck to you and your business.
Thank you, sir.
And as always, man, I look forward to keeping up with you and seeing how your business is doing in 2021. Best of luck to you.
You too.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Thanks.